Good morning, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. I have a short stream for you today. I'll talk a little bit about Donald Trump and Iran, okay? And I'll get right into it.
There have been so many accomplishments. One of them that you didn't even mention, rooting out fraud in our country, which I think has meant so much to the American people.
I think we can balance our budget, and JD's doing a great job with his team. And they've caught already hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And they haven't even gotten to California yet. California is very fraud. The whole thing is a fraud. The whole deal. Their elections are a fraud. Their mail-in votes are a fraud. But on the economic standpoint, if we find half of the fraud that's going on in this country, and we will, we're going to have a balanced budget very soon. Think of it.
It's amazing.
Which we haven't had for 30 years.
Morning, Zero.
Well, despite all of the great things, we know as we head towards the midterms, you will have more Democrats out there talking about something that they have no business talking about, which is affordability. Yeah. And that is what they have said they want to run these midterms on. Obviously, you have set the country up so perfectly to make life more affordable on the other side of the Iran conflict. What is your message going to be, though?
What they are is they're good salesmen, but they have no policy. Their policy is horrible. I don't understand it. They never change it. I hate to bring it up. I like to bring it up just before the elections because they won't change men playing in women's sports. They won't, this transgender, this guy running in Texas, he says there are 6 genders. He wears a mask all the time. He's a disaster candidate, I'll tell you. I think Ken Paxton's going to absolutely just destroy him. I'm going to go out and do rallies for him. I think that, you look at their policy, you don't even understand. How can they want this? And as far as polling goes, the polls they always say 80-20. I think many of these things are 97-3. I think they're 100-0. I mean, did you see where CNN did a poll on me and I was 100% with MAGA? They couldn't believe it. Harry Enton, who seems like a nice guy, he's pretty legit. He gives me a lot of good polls, I'll tell you. But which means he's in trouble. This job must be in trouble. But he did a poll about the Republican Party and MAGA and Trump's popularity. And he said, he's at 100%. I don't believe that. It was actually 100% poll. Well, you saw that in the election the other night,
Well, that's a great point. All of your candidates, your record so far this primary season has been perfect. 9 Senate, 101 House, 8 gubernatorial candidates that you endorsed all advanced to the general election. I mean, that is remarkable.
So I'm at 87% in general elections. Nobody talks about that. That's pretty good too. But we have very bad elections. We really have to pass Save America Act. Save America Act is voter ID, very important, proof of citizenship, and no mail-in ballots, with exceptions if you're in the military or you're disabled or you're sick or something, or you're going on vacation. I'll be liberal on that subject, okay, to use a term that nobody uses anymore. But no, with exceptions. And the mail-in ballots, no other country in the world is doing mail-in voting anymore because it's a fraud. You cannot keep it honest. There's no way of keeping it honest. The Republican Senate has to get going. The House has passed it. And the Republican Senate has to get going. They have to. They have no choice. One of the things I'm proud of is that, and I like John Cornyn. He's a good guy. But, I think that we need some change. And Ken Paxton's going to be great. But if you remember, Ken Paxton he lost the primary by 2 points, and then he won by almost 30. That was after I endorsed him. So he lost the primary by 2, and then he won by 30 after I endorsed him. He won by 30 points. And I think he's going to be a great senator.
So next week in California, they will hold their primaries for their governor's race. And obviously, people are paying very close attention to the mayor race there in Los Angeles. Spencer Pratt has come out very hot. People are interested in this. You endorse Steve Hilton. Any predictions for what we might see happen in California, despite the fact that we know it's a little wonky there?
They don't have voting booths. Everything's by mail. So I'd like to say, and I'm a friend of Steve. I think Steve is great, and I endorsed him. But I know the system very well. I don't think a Republican can win in California unless you pass the Save America Act. Then they're going to have to show proof of citizenship. They're going to have to get rid of their mail-in voting. No other country. Remember, France used to do it. They ended it because it was rigged. And you can't do that. You can't have that.
Absolutely. Last week, you had the Giants quarterback, Jackson Dart, join you on stage at a rally. And as predicted, I think we could all predict it, all of the haters, all the crazy people came out for him, showed him a lot of animosity for being on stage with you. Do you have any idea why it is that the Trump derangement syndrome with some of these people is so strong that you live rent-free in their heads and they can't help themselves but to be outraged about somebody joining you on stage?
Well, first of all, I wish I looked just like Jackson. This is a guy. I said, is he a male model or what? He's a handsome guy, like a beautiful guy, and conservative guy. He said, "I love you, sir." And I didn't know he was doing it, but he's potentially a great quarterback. He's a young boy. He had just really started, but when he's in a game, he moves the team. And I didn't know him, but I watched him a little bit, and he really moves the team. He's got tremendous potential. If he stays healthy, he's going to be he's a great guy. Remember this, I won the popular vote by a lot, landslides. I won everything. If you look, there's another category that people don't look at, but that's the one that's very important because they color the maps by that. That's why the map is all red, except for 2 lines on each side, east and west. And I won counties 87% in the United States. So when Jackson gets harassed a little bit, he's also loved more because we have more people than they do. And a lot of the people that you think, like people in Los Angeles, wealthy people I see them all the time, they're hitting me a little bit, and they meet me and they said, "Sir, I voted for you." I said, I know, I can tell. You guys voted for me. I can tell you people on television that knock me all the time voted for me. And if they have a choice between paying much higher taxes, the Democrats wanted high taxes. I wanted low taxes. I'm right, because that's why the economy is booming. Look, we have a war going on and the economy is booming. We have a war going on. And today we just hit another number 69 is all-time high today. And we have a war going on.
Well, we're a few weeks away. You can see outside the construction is happening from this amazing, historic UFC event. It's obviously right outside on the White House lawn. It coincides with your 80th birthday, which is incredible.
I hate to hear that. And that's on June 14th, and it's the hardest ticket. I have never been asked people, everybody wants. I'm going to make more enemies. And it's about 4,000 seats, and then they're going to have close to 100,000 people in the back where they're putting up 8 massive screens. And it's all free. It's all free. It's really a contribution from UFC to 250, meaning the 250 years our country, our great country. So it was a great thing for UFC. And then we have Roger Penske coming with Indy in August, and we're going to have a tremendous Indy race. It's going to be around the Capitol. It's all set up. It's going to be around the Capitol. That'll be good. We're doing some amazing things for the 200. And we've never done this before. But what we're doing with UFC, I've never seen anything like it. And he's building an arena. They're building it. And great job. Every crane, I see everything. I like it. Brand new cranes, brand new everything. Everything's beautiful. Everything's like money. Crazy. And they're building a great arena. And June 14th is, which by happenstance is my birthday. It was not set up that everyone said, oh, he did it for his birthday. And it's Sunday night, June 14th. It happens to be Flag Day. And it happens to be my birthday, but that happened to be the best night for it. And it's going to be something that's going to be very exciting.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Should we go check what's going on outside?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Lord.
We'll see that.
Be sure to like and
crazy.
subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Wow. Hi, 23B Rad. Good morning. You guys want another video before I go to bed? I'll give you another one. Well, happy early birthday to Donald Trump. Right. Zoomies. I hate the close up when I'm just chilling at night. I'm like, oh goodness gracious.
And this is Life.
This isn't long, you guys. I'm not even
Saturday. Welcome. 2 great guests this evening: Victor Davis Hanson and former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren. But first, I want to address 2 subjects during my opening here: Iran and the president improving the Republican Party.
Thank you,
That's
Dennis.
right.
Dennis just
Improving
rocks
the
out with
Republican
me.
Party. In dealing with Iran, the issues come down to three essential matters: postpone,
You like the close up?
contain, or defeat. Postpone, contain, or defeat. Now I want to explain to you why postpone and contain in the end.
I don't know
cannot
if you
work.
guys like him. I like his style.
What is our objective? To postpone Iran's nuclear program and enrichment? To contain it? To contain it for a short period of time, for 20 years, forever? Or to permanently end it
Thank
and
you,
all the
God.
other threats
You always make
born
me
of the
feel better.
regime by defeating the regime, that is, eliminating the regime. Even more, when a regime like that in Iran
I'm no
combines
Dennis.
religious
I'll be right back, guys.
fundamentalism and radical political ideology, that is, an international revolutionary-based religious fundamentalism said to be commanded by Allah, that requires the elimination of all obstacles by whatever means possible or necessary. And the only way the 12th Imam will reveal himself and ensure that peace and prosperity and the precepts and principles of the Quran will be properly applied and enforced throughout the world is by conquering and destroying non-believers. How many of you watching me right now believe a paper agreement with the great Satan, us, the United States of America, will stop that? How many of you? And herein lies the problem. Islamist scholars who have and do write about all of this, imams who preach this daily in their mosques, and the Iranian regime that husbands all its resources to promote this have told us and tell us now that the West must be conquered and destroyed. Our country is the biggest of the obstacles, and it must be eliminated. Israel is seen as the greatest immediate threat, as it is in the Middle East, closest to the heart of the Iranian Revolution, and stands in the way of uniting Muslim forces in the revolutionary crusade demanded by Allah. For the regime, it lives to conquer, destroy, and kill in pursuit of its reason for existing, its only reason for existing. It will never adhere to any agreement that seeks to limit, contain, or manage its God-required revolution. To do so would be to defy Allah and to destroy itself. Therefore, Sharia creates a justification for deception agreements when it comes to pursuing and spreading the faith and the ideology. It's called taqiyya. We've talked about this before. Taqiyya. I wish everybody at the State Department, the Defense Department, the National Security Council, all ambassadors, all envoys, as well as all members of Congress of both parties were required to at least take one course on this. At least one course. Taqiyya allows for deceit, connivance, and all the rest of it. For, among other things, protection of the community. In Iran's case, the protection of the revolution. Do whatever you have to do. The revolution must survive. It must thrive. Period. So what does all this mean? It means the goal of the Iranian regime is survival. It might lose military battles. It might lose military and industrial infrastructure. It might lose its first and second tier of leadership. But the regime is the ideology. It's the revolution. That means the fundamental Islamic revolutionary political, religious, and governing structure survives. Like the communist Chinese, the Iranian regime has a long view of things, multi-generational, decades and even centuries. In the West, we have an election cycle. We have political and governmental change built into our system of representative government to ensure we do not institute the kind of permanent tyrannies and totalitarian administrations you see in communist regimes and in Iran. But in Iran, like China, they see this as a structural weakness on our part and in the entire West to be exploited, manipulated, and leveraged. Elections are to be used against us. We have built-in, quote unquote, regime change, if you will. For example, they know we have midterm elections in 6 months. They see and hear what the Democrats are saying right now, what the media are saying right now, what some of the Republicans, the woke right isolationists are saying. And they see our polls and the complaints about the price of a gallon of gasoline. And so while they see an incredibly strong commander-in-chief in President Trump, they see a fierce and unbeatable military in the United States military, they see it all as transitory. They believe the will is ultimately soft, our will in the United States and the West. And that once the Trump presidency concludes, they can rely on something more akin to an Obama or Biden administration. The Iranian regime will become even more repressive, slaughtering, torturing, raping as many people as it believes it must in its own country, and do so righteously, in the name of God, in the name of Allah, because it's for the revolution, commanded by Allah. It cannot allow dissension, let alone protest, to challenge or threaten the revolution, mandated by God. So while the military and economic victories we have and are imposing on the Iranian regime are historic, in fact, our military has been spectacular in fulfilling its mission. The regime survival, again, by this I mean, and they mean, the revolution and its infrastructure, that's the regime, has not been destroyed. And let me be clear about something else. President Trump has done more to confront this grave threat to humanity than any other president. He and Benjamin Netanyahu have put their political careers on the line, have put their governments on the line. They've done more than anybody in the last half century to try and confront this Islamist revolution, to ensure that they don't get nuclear weapons, at least not on their watch, and hopefully beyond. President Trump, as I said, has put his presidency on the line to prevent this terrorist regime from destroying millions of us. Benjamin Netanyahu has put his prime ministership on the line because the people running who want to be prime minister are now attacking him for a variety of reasons. And these opponents, these myriad of ferocious, duplicitous, exploitive, political and ideological opponents who would put our nation and the free world at risk of annihilation, even if it meant political advantage and electoral victories for them, are truly detestable. It's one thing to have a loyal opposition. It's another thing to have a disloyal opposition. President Trump is an extremely courageous leader who's done and is doing what 7 prior presidents refused to do. The question now is whether each of us, we the people, you, Mr. and Mrs. America, have as much courage as he does. And even more, whether we have the will to support the elimination of the Iranian regime so that our children and grandchildren and future generations will be free of their revolution and their threats. Well, that's my 2 cents worth. Maybe it's 5 cents worth. You'll be deciding that. I want to move on to another subject. Now, President Trump takes a lot of heat. They claim he's doing these horrendous things to government, to the culture, horrendous things to the Constitution. All lies. I tell you this from a historical and legal perspective. In fact, it is they, his opposition, the abuse of power, the Department of Justice, the prosecutors, the indictments, the different jurisdictions, the abuse of the 14th Amendment to keep him off the ballot, and over and over and on and on. 2 unconstitutional impeachments, already plotting another impeachment, already plotting to destroy the independence of the Supreme Court and the judiciary, to stack the Senate, to stack the House of Representatives, and God knows what else they have in store for us. How dare they point a finger at him or any of us when it is they who are tyrannical and have a totalitarian mindset? And look what they're doing in New York City, destroying it, absolutely destroying it. And in fact, the blue states are depopulating. People are trying to get out of there if they can get new jobs. Many people, they feel they can't leave. They have a generational attachment. But the only states that are actually growing, and I don't mean with illegal aliens, I mean with American citizens and naturalized citizens, are red states. Are red states. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the Democrats want to take over the whole country. So there's no escape. No matter what state you go to, the iron fist of centralized big government will be thrown at you. President Trump has a very small majority in the House and the Senate. And he's trying to get things done as fast as he can because he knows that there's a midterm election. We pray that we win, but we don't know. And he knows he has less than 3 years left in his presidency, and he's a doer, and he wants to get things done. And he's reaching into the culture, not just politics, to try and reform and protect and defend this nation. And people say, look at this. He knocked off a senator from Louisiana. He knocked off a senator from Texas. He knocked off this crazy congressman from Kentucky. Who does that? A little bit of history. FDR tried to do that. The great FDR, according to the Democrats, greater than George Washington, greater than Abraham Lincoln combined. Nobody liked FDR. Why? Because he was a big socialist. That's why. But that for another day. Our friends at teachingamericanhistory.org, frustrated by the setbacks that his administration had encountered in its second term, President Franklin Roosevelt took the bold step of intervening in the 1938 Democratic primaries. His targets were conservative Democrats, mostly Southerners, who had joined Republicans in opposing New Deal measures. In races across the country, he stumped for liberal candidates and denounced conservative incumbents as traitors to the cause of his reform. He explained his efforts in a speech, a fireside speech that he gave on June 24, 1938. Certainly, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let me give you a taste of it. He said, after the election of 1936, I was told, and Congress was told by an increasing number of politically and worldly wise people, that I should coast along and join easy presidency for 4 years and not take the Democratic platform too seriously. They told me that the people were getting weary of reform through political effort and would no longer oppose that small minority which, in spite of its own disastrous leadership in 1929, is always eager to resume its control over the government of the United States. Never in our lifetime has such a concerted campaign of defeatism been thrown at the heads of the president and the senators and congressmen as in the case of this 75th Congress. He had gotten a lot of his New Deal through. Once he threatened the Supreme Court, and many of the senior members started retiring, replaced with his appointees. But he was now being blocked by several of the more moderate senators, Democrats in Congress, who said, we understand why you were trying to address the Depression. But we're not all in for this socialist stuff. He says, never before have so many copperheads. What's a copperhead? During the Civil War, these were Northern Democrats who sided with not the South, but with bringing the Civil War to a quick conclusion. They opposed
You guys
war.
don't like my video? It's almost over.
They opposed the warmongers who were trying to win the Civil War. And they turned on Lincoln, and they wanted to negotiate peace with the Confederacy. See, we've been through a lot of these things before, whether it's World War II, the Civil War, and now the war with Iran. We've had the so-called anti-war types who don't want victory.
I'm sorry.
And so you don't get victory.
Me too, Stewie girl.
So he complains about them. He says, this Congress has ended on the side of the people. My faith in the American people and their faith in themselves have been justified. And I congratulate the Congress and the leadership thereof. And I congratulate the American people on their own staying power. So he slaps them around and then pats them on the head.
He's serious,
this
but
a
I
lot of
like
his
him a
speech.
lot. Okay.
He goes on. Following out this line of thought, I want to say a few words about the coming political primaries. Here we get to the gist of it. 50 years ago, party nominations were generally made in conventions, a system typified in the public imagination by a little group in smoke-filled room who made out the party states. The direct primary was invented to make the nominating process a more democratic one, to give the party voters themselves a chance to pick their party candidates. He goes on, an election cannot give the country a firm sense of direction if it has two or more national parties which merely have different names but are as alike in their principles and aims as peas in the same pod. In other words, the uniparty. The radicals always talk about the uniparty, whether they're the woke right, R-E-I-C-H, the Islamists or the Marxists, or just kooks. The coming primaries, all parties, there will be many clashes between two schools of thought, generally classified as liberal and conservative. Roughly speaking, the liberal school of thought recognizes the new conditions throughout the world, and they call for new remedies. And of course, the conservatives, just the old school, you know, big business, big government, all the Bernie Sanders claptrap. But he says later, with the head of the Democrat Party charged with the responsibility of carrying out the definitely liberal declaration of principles set forth in the 1936 Democratic platform, I feel that I have every right to speak in those few instances where there may be a clear-cut issue between candidates for a Democratic nomination involving these principles or involving a clear misuse of my own name. So he goes out and he campaigns, actually help pick candidates to take on these more conservative candidates. He's wildly popular, FDR, won a landslide. But in every case where he tried to knock off a more conservative or moderate Democrat, his candidate lost except one in New York. Every other case, FDR's candidate lost. And it set back his administration. The party was angry. If he had won, they wouldn't be so angry, but he lost. Everyone but one. He lost Walter George, a senator in Georgia. George won. Millard Tydings in Maryland won. FDR lost. Ellison Smith in South Carolina won. FDR lost. But he won this chairman of the House Rules Committee in New York, John O'Connor. He defeated him, but that's it. He didn't defeat anybody else. I want you to compare that to Donald Trump. Again, you got a couple vote majority in the House, and you got guys like Massey who represent one small congressional district who are trying to undermine the president's landslide victory. One congressman, maybe two or three, because the majority is so tight. So they're trying to take his mandate and destroy it.
Wow.
And the president knows, President Trump, I got to get my agenda through. And I have a few of these senators who do the same thing. I got one senator who actually voted to remove me from office in the second impeachment when I already was a private citizen. And he expects me to be supporting him in a Republican primary. What Donald Trump has done is what FDR tried to do but failed. Not only that, in Donald Trump's case, it's not only Louisiana, it's not only state senators in Indiana, it's not only Massey in Kentucky, it's not only the Senate race in Georgia with this Raffensperger, it's not only Cornyn in Texas, but before that, the president got involved in all these primaries in his first term. I don't think he's lost one. Maybe it's one or two, but whatever it is, it's inconsequential.
How do you guys not like this
So for
guy?
those people who say, you know, Donald Trump's lost a step, you know, MAGA's divided, you know, MAGA's tiny, tiny thing that just represents Mark Levin. These are fools and buffoons. MAGA is as strong as ever. In fact, the Republican Party is MAGA.
I know you do, Zero.
And MAGA is Donald Trump's movement. And we've got the general election. Everything will be put to the test come November, but those are the facts.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
I think that's the
And
only
catch
thing
full
I
shows
disagree with.
streaming now on
That
Fox
is that.
1.
To be fair, oh wait. I think that is a really good documentary that's coming up next, but I think we watched that together. The Republican Party isn't all MAGA because I'm not MAGA, but Donald Trump did start a movement about putting America first, and he's doing an amazing job. Midterm elections are coming up in 6 months. because he's Jewish. But I don't know. Some people don't like him because he's serious, but I like that. I do. Donald Trump, you know, you're either gonna love him or you hate him, and the ones that hate him, I feel, are not. What about?
Something went wrong. Please try again.
Sorry, hold on, you guys. I can't multitask. Give me a second. You're gonna love him or you hate him, but us patriots love him, right? Here we go. We patriots love him. Okay, here you go.
What on earth is happening on the South Lawn behind me right now? That is not construction of President Trump's new ballroom. That is actually the construction ahead of the UFC fight that is scheduled to take place here on June 14th. Now, it's part of the events that are leading up to America's 250th birthday on July 4th. That will be held, though, on Flag Day here at the White House, which is also the weekend of President Trump's birthday. And he says an estimated 4,000 people will be held in that arena when it's finished being built here on the South Lawn of the White House. Weigh-ins are going to take place at the Lincoln Memorial. Massive watch parties are going to happen here in Washington. And as you look at it, it's kind of hard to overstate just how big the construction is of the Octagon Arena that they are building here for the UFC fight, set to take place in just a few weeks.
For more on this, I want to bring in my political sources, Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton, giant UFC fans, right, guys? No?
Yes, this guy right here.
Yeah. I saw that sort of apparatus at King's Dominion. They like shoot you up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
No,
That's
this is
totally
different.
what
This is a stadium. Okay, what do you think, Maria, of this whole affair?
This is why I don't play too many other news stations, because they get so off subject instead of just.
I think it's the continued desecration, Brianna, of the People's House. And look, I'm not putting down UFC. I know that it is, a huge event. Tons of people love it. But why not have it on the mall? Why not have it somewhere else that is not in the middle of the White House? And I think what it does is it reminds people just how much this administration's priority is not affordability, is not bringing down costs. It's not focused on inflation. It's not keeping the promises that they made during the campaign, but it is these grandiose, gaudy, sort of flashy, I think vulgar events that have everything to do with not honoring the American people. He's using the 250th anniversary as an excuse, but honoring Donald Trump. And it goes to Americans now thinking this is why they're so mad and why Donald Trump's poll numbers are continuing to go in the wrong direction, because he's not focused on the priorities of the American people. He's focused on his own priorities.
Look, I think, Brianna, we can focus on cost of living, housing shortages, educational crisis within our country, focusing on issues with young men, focusing on the issues of our inner cities, immigration, and foreign affairs. We can do all of those things, and we should do those things, and we should assure the American people that they are top priorities for the Republican Party and for the president. That said, we can also celebrate the 250th anniversary of the country. I'm a big UFC fan. I think it's wonderful to have Americans at the People's House, the White House. It is all of our houses to be there, and also to see a sport that millions of Americans like and adore. And by the way, I'll add, I think Donald Trump recognizes the strength that he has had and Republicans have had for a couple of years now with men, particularly 25 to 45-year-olds. And so I also think there's a political dynamic to this also.
Oh, certainly. And as the fight is happening, you mentioned his approval rating hovering in the mid-30s. It's the lowest that it's ever been. And UFC CEO Dana White actually spoke about that during an interview with Rolling Stone on Tuesday. Let's listen to that.
As far as his popularity as a president and, his policies, I mean, that stuff goes like this over a 4-year term for every president. But it doesn't change my relationship with him as my friend.
Do you think he needs this right now? It seems like,
probably not. I bet he probably wishes that this wasn't happening, but it's happening. I don't know. He's never said anything to me like that, but
yeah.
This guy's dealing with shit that people like you and I can't even imagine.
What do you think of that? Trump probably wishes the fight wasn't happening.
I don't know if that's true, knowing the president as well as I do. Again, as I said, it's the People's House. And I think to celebrate the country with a sport that a lot of Americans do adore and enjoy, again, particularly men, I think is smart. I think when you're looking at the election upcoming, there are some issues that Democrats and Republicans are going to fight over. I think it's ultimately going to come down to the margins in some of these key races. You just heard some of the talking points that Democrats will lay against Republicans this November from Maria. And so for us, we're looking at those marginal differences, trying to figure out, Brianna, where can we pull some of those voters that may look at Democrats and say, yeah, maybe their messaging is somewhat accurate on this, but there are other cultural, social issues that don't resonate with.
You're looking at live pictures of the White House South Lawn. Crews are right now working on a massive octagonal-shaped cage for the UFC fight that's scheduled at the White House for Trump's 80th birthday in June. Here's a rendering from the UFC of what it will look like when it is done. And Trump says the event is part of celebrations also for America's 250th birthday this year. Now, Trump is also citing America's 250th for his triumphal arch, which will be the tallest in the world, he says, and is facing a lawsuit by a group of Vietnam veterans, arguing that it obstructs the symbolic view from Arlington National Cemetery to the Lincoln Memorial. The lawsuit also argues that the arch must be approved by Congress. And Sean Burns and John Gunderson are two of the Vietnam vets who brought that lawsuit. They are out front tonight. Sean, you shared photos with us from the Vietnam War, and you're on the far right here, standing by one of the jets that you flew. And you served this country, and you were in a war. You had friends who died. As a veteran, what is your gut reaction when you hear and then you see the renderings of what Trump is doing with the arch?
Frankly, Aaron, it's good to be here, and thank you for having me. But to answer your question, I'm appalled. I lost a number of close friends and 3 shipmates in and around Vietnam, and I'm just appalled at this massive vanity project going up on ground that is some of the most sacred ground to Americans, without following procedures and the law in building. And I just find it's appalling.
So John, Trump says that the arch will be the largest in the world. That's what he says. And when we show it here, it is going to, when it's done, according to the renderings, be 50 feet taller than the Arch of Triumph in Pyongyang. It will be 90 feet taller than the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And obviously, it dwarfs the White House and the Lincoln Memorial, as we can see that. It will remake Washington, D.C. So, John, what statement do you think this makes to the world?
Yeah, as Sean says, it's a vainglorious comment. It does not serve veterans. When you think about this arch, which, as you mentioned, Aaron, is it's also much bigger than the Statue of Liberty. And if you've ever been in Arlington National Cemetery and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, you have this sweeping, iconic view of Washington. You see the Lincoln Memorial, you see the Washington Monument, the Vietnam Memorial, Korean, World War II. This arch would block that view, which is sacred. And the Arlington National Cemetery, that was made after the Civil War, as a sign of unity. What this arch does is it's not cleared by Congress. It is not vetted by veterans. It is disgraceful for veterans, and it doesn't go through the normal process. All these other ones, the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, passed by Congress, bipartisan support, vetted by veterans. This is not. It's the wrong arch in the wrong place. It's a bad idea.
Sean, you have thought about death and where you want to be buried. And I know, it's something that you could be buried at Arlington Cemetery as a veteran. And when your time comes, and it's something that you thought about and perhaps you thought you wanted to do, but I know that this is making you reconsider that.
Is that to me, Aaron?
Yes, to you, Sean.
The answer is a firm yes.
How come?
I think this massive arch, which I understand from an interview the president did some weeks ago and was reported in the mainstream papers, when he was asked what the arch was intended for was, he said, and I quote, me, unquote, that was enough to make me decide that this is something I would reconsider.
John, let me play that moment that you're referring to when Trump was asked what the arch is for, right? Because I mentioned that, he said it's part of America's 250th, but he was asked in this interview by CBS what it was really for. And he did say, me. Let me play it.
What is this, Mr. President?
Thank you all. You come this way. Thank you.
For who?
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, I know where it is, but who's it for?
Thank you, guys.
So the reporter says, yeah, I know where it is, but who is it for, John? He replies, me. So what's your just emotional response to that?
You're referring to me. I think Sean and I have the same one, as that, when we served in Vietnam, it was a very controversial war. And we came back, we weren't honored, we weren't greeted. That's fine, we did our duty. So we believe in veterans. We believe in having something that commemorates veterans. For example, look at the Vietnam Memorial, which was very controversial, the way it was built. And what it is there for is not the general on horseback, is not a cause which was very controversial. If for the common soldier, each name is there, and I have comrades there listed. And they're individuals, they're all equal in the eyes of their faith, of their country. Then you have 3 veterans of what we call grunts, common soldiers, and you have a woman's one. So this is the type of thoughtful process we need: veterans input, congressional input, and the input of those who are most affected by it. Not because some president of the United States wants some glory thing for himself. I want in the future kids to come, generations to come, to admire anything like we have in Washington. This is not the right thing.
All right. Thank you both very much. I appreciate your time. And obviously, as we know, you have this lawsuit, and we will see what will happen. Thank you both very much for taking the time to talk to me tonight.
New reporting from the New York Times about the cost of President Trump's reflecting pool renovations. The Times, citing internal government records, says the company given a no-bid contract to repair the pool is being paid an inflated and excessive profit margin far exceeding the norm. Their bid added at least $850,000 to what a more typical contract may have cost, and the administration eventually agreed to pay the company $13.1 million, 7 times more than what the president initially estimated. Meanwhile, this is how the president defended the spending during a cabinet meeting today.
It always leaked, and it was a problem, and a lot of things, and hundreds of millions was spent. The Biden administration and the Obama administration spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to get it to work, and they failed. And we'll be spending, you'll give me a number, but I think it's a very low number.
Earlier, I spoke with New York Times investigative reporter David Fahrenthold, who broke the story. So can you just walk us through what you found about the profit margins for this no-bid contract?
Well, what we found was that this contractor is charging the government 20% overhead and then another 20% for profit. What we found was that the National Park Service itself, the people who are paying the bill, did their own analysis and found that both of those were inflated. Both of those were excessive. But the normal profit margin is like 6 to 12% usually.
Mm-hmm.
And so despite
the
fact
20% for overhead and 20%
more and both of those are above norms. Park Service paid it anyway, though.
And how did they get away with doing a no-bid contract? Is it just because of the length of time?
It's, the no-bid contracts are unusual. They're supposed to be unusual. Usually, if you want to find out who's going to do the best job for the least money, you go out and ask for multiple bids. In this case, they not only gave the bid only to one company, that's unusual enough, but they went a step further and did something even more unusual, which is that they gave them the contract before they'd even agree. We'll haggle about it later, how much you're going to be paid. And of course, when they went back to haggle about it later, the government had lost all its leverage to try to drive a hard bargain, and the work was already underway.
And the president has kind of, initially he took credit for choosing the contractor. He then later disavowed that. Has there been any clarification on how this company got the contract?
No, you're right. The president said initially, this is the company that fixed the swimming pools at my golf course in Northern Virginia. And, I knew them and I called them in myself. Later on, he said, okay, none of that was true. I don't know these people at all. But we don't really know how this company got chosen. They're not a pool company. They do not advertise any expertise with pools. And they have no history of doing government contracts. This is their first ever government contract.
You also talk about the actual work that's being done, what already they found out that they can't fix that needs fixing. What did you find?
So one of the most important problems with the pool, and this problem's been around for decades, is that there's concrete slabs that make up the pool's floor, and there's gaps between them that are usually filled in with some kind of sealant. Lots of water leaks out between those gaps, and then the government has to spend a lot of money to replace it. So the main thing that they're supposed to do is plug those gaps. And what we saw was that the first 2 times they tried, their method failed.
So the one thing that very much needs to be done, that's not going to be done.
Right.
So what is this company doing?
The main thing they're doing, and I think people have seen on TV, is that they're putting a blue waterproofing coating on the concrete slabs themselves, which people we talked to said, well, that's not going to hurt. But the water doesn't leak out through the 8-inch thick concrete slabs. It leaks out between them. So you're sort of solving a problem that doesn't really exist.
So will this happen again? I mean, is this the new way things are going to be done? Because I heard the president now talking about the World War II memorial might need a little zhuzhing.
Well, that's a little bizarre, actually, because they already paid to fix the World War II memorial. They paid in December $4 million to fix the World War II memorial. I was there yesterday. It looks great. It doesn't need any fixing.
The president said something, I think, about lightening a color.
Oh, they're going to change the color. It's a very nice,
something about going with a lighter color. Would that be for the water, for the pool?
For the bottom of the pool.
Okay.
The water there is clear. It's a very beautiful memorial. I guess they could change the paint color, but they just fixed it.
Doc, that's not going to happen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't see, how did that even become a subject? But I do like the fact that you guys think I'm non-biased enough to be a Democrat. I like that. I'm not going to argue about it. I'm not really happy about this last clip I'm going to show you guys, but we're going to do it anyway. Because I do share nonpartisan news. I'm not biased. Zeno brought it up. Oh, I'm like, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. If you guys think that it has a I can't even say it has a nice ring to it. Hold on. I knew you were a Democrat. Okay. Okay, maybe, Hang on. I got you.
The CNN medical analyst, Dr. Jonathan Reiner. So good to see you. I have it in my hands. I was coming over it. I know I wanted to talk to you about this. So, Dr. Reiner, much has been made of the president's hand bruising, which is usually covered up by makeup. And I want to just talk about a portion of this medical summary because it states that it is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation related to frequent handshaking. What's your take?
Right. Well, I suppose that can happen, particularly if you're on a higher dose of aspirin than we typically recommend,
which they say,
for a patient for cardiovascular protection.
You guys know me.
But it doesn't explain why his left hand is also bruising, unless he's doing some left-handed shaking routinely and vigorously.
So these fake reporters are trying to make it seem as if Donald Trump is in bad health when Donald Trump is in excellent health. And I find it interesting that they want him to be unhealthy so bad. He's close to 80 years old, and he's doing better than some 50-year-olds.
So that's never really rung true. And perhaps it's all just because of this higher dose of aspirin. But my question is, why are you taking a higher dose of aspirin than recommended? What's interesting to me also is that the report mentions that the president underwent a coronary artery CT scan, which is a very useful test, except he had that in the fall.
Why?
And it's not typically a test that is done every 6 months. It's sometimes done more frequently if someone is having symptoms. We don't know if he's having any symptoms because the exam doesn't list what we call a review of symptoms, where you review of systems, where you go through system by system with the patient and ask them questions like, Are you having headaches? Are you having any shortness of breath? You get chest pain, abdominal pain, et cetera. So there's no real description of a review of systems in this note. But it does mention that, again, they scanned him. So my question is, are they surveilling him for a concern? Are they doing serial CT scans of his heart because they have an ongoing concern? That's not listed in the note. The importance of this memorandum is really summarized in the last line. And this is why it's so important for the public to see this. And when there was some concern that they were just simply not going to release it, what I mentioned earlier today was the last line of all these notes always say the same thing, which is that, upon examination and evaluation of the patient, the president is deemed, fit for service as commander-in-chief and head of state.
Right.
And that's crucial. The public knows that. And this report would speak to that conclusion. There are other things that it misses. There's no discussion of the patient's obvious excess of sleepiness during the day. And that's, I think, an important omission.
Well, one thing I want to ask you about, and I will note, part of what they say in that last line is that his demanding daily schedule, including multiple high-level meetings, public engagements, and regular physical activity, continues to support his overall well-being, and talks about his cognitive and physical performance. But there were 2 points there. And one is that there was an AI evaluation of the president's cardiac health, and it found he is actually 14 years younger. I want you to elaborate on what that means and how you determine that. But also, to your point about monitoring something, there's a section about extremities and musculoskeletal. Slight lower leg swelling was noted with improvement from last year. Does that suggest that there had been a monitoring, and does that give you pause? And tell me about this 14-year younger president.
Well, first of all, if you look at Dr. Barbara Bella's note from April of last year, it notes no swelling in the legs. So if he has swelling in his legs, then that's not an improvement from last year. That's a deterioration from last year. Perhaps it's improved from over the summer when the photos made the press. But last year at this time, they documented that the president had no swelling in his legs.
So how about this
As
AI
for
date? AI of 14 years younger.
Yeah. So they reported that last year as well. And when I discussed this with some of my colleagues in cardiology, everyone laughed. That's not a clinical use tool. There was one paper on this technology. So, but that's not really a way to gauge cardiac health.
Well,
that's not a clinically accepted or relevant tool.
Well, his birthday's coming
It's
up.
flattering for him.
It's
flattering for the president.
You think,
But
Dr. Reiner?
But it's not a clinically used tool.
Well, thank you for your expertise. You would know. Dr. Jonathan Reiner, everyone, thank you so much.
The White House tonight breaking with precedent and not committing to releasing the medical report from President Trump's physical exam at Walter Reed. Now, that was on Tuesday, and a White House official on that day said that there would be, quote, a readout in the next day or so. Well, that was Tuesday. Today, of course, is Friday, and the White House is declining to comment on the record today. The only information the American public has about the physical is from President Trump himself, who said, quote, everything checked out, all caps, perfectly. It is remarkable for the White House to be so not transparent about the president's health, as questions are growing louder over images like these, right? The swollen ankles, bruising on Trump's hands, a rash that he had on his neck, and in meeting after meeting, appearing to doze off. Out front now, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, the longtime cardiologist for former Vice President Dick Cheney. So spent a lot of time as a White House doctor. So Dr. Reiner, I just want to try to understand from you as best we can what could be happening here. On Tuesday, they said they expected to have a readout in the next day or so. That was Tuesday. Today, it's now Friday night at 7:30 Eastern. And just as a point of reference, the last physical that Trump had, we did get results within 2 days. So what do you make of this delay?
Well, the only reason not to release a health report on the President of the United States after his annual physical, I guess now semi-annual physical, is that there's something in it that you don't want the public to know. The presidential physical has become a tradition in the United States But the most important piece of information that we get from the president's physician's statement comes at the end, and it's a single sentence. And in every one of these documents that we've had since about 1968, when Richard Nixon started to do these, basically concludes with a statement that says, the President of the United States is fit to perform the duties of President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And that is essential for the public to know that. And if the White House does not release a document outlining that the President is healthy, then the public is not being assured that he is fit to be President of the United States or Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
And look, these questions matter. They matter in part because you have somebody who's posted things like wiping an entire civilization off the map, right? Because those things are extremely unsettling to people, just behaviorally. And it also matters because just from the reality of life, President Trump is turning 80 in a couple of weeks. And in recent months, we have seen evidence of his age, right? The swollen ankles, the bruising, the rash, the dozing off, all things that just normal parts of aging, perhaps. You've called the dozing off, though, severe daytime somnolence. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it correctly, but that is a condition that could make it hard to stay awake throughout the day. Do you, just looking at all those things that are proximate in timing to this actual physical, do you think they're related?
Well, I don't know if they're all related or they're individual issues. So the bruising on his hand, that may be simply that he's taking too much aspirin. But why is he taking so much aspirin? He's acknowledged that it's more than his doctor wants him to take. So that doesn't make sense. He's obviously sensitive to it since he covers it with makeup and he covers his hand when he's sitting at his desk. So if he could take less aspirin, he would. The swelling in his legs. The swelling in his legs is interesting because 1 year ago at his last annual physical exam, his doctor said he had no swelling. So in July, they called it chronic venous insufficiency. But if he didn't have it 3 months earlier, it's not chronic, it's acute, and that's a completely different workup. And then there is the somnolence, the sleepiness. He almost certainly has insomnia. We know that he's posting on social media in the middle of the night, and it's very difficult for him to stay awake if he's not speaking. So when he is surrounded with a group of people, even if they are speaking directly to him, it's now common for him to start to close his eyes. And that's a problem because he needs to be effective during the day. The President of the United States, the Commander of the Armed Forces, needs to be effective. So we haven't really had a readout on that. And then finally, in October, the President underwent sort of an unexpected battery of what the President's physicians called advanced imaging exams, which turned out to be a CT scan. And we really have had no data on that. So we really need to have a very fulsome explanation of the President's health at this time.
All right, Dr. Reiner, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I think that was absolutely ridiculous. We all have choices as we get older. I think, what is wrong with folks? The guy is almost 80 years old. Who cares if his legs have a little water in them? I'm not understanding. Exactly, Stewie girl. You see how biased these news networks are? You have to be careful. But that's what they're talking about, Donald Trump's health. And now I'm not here caping for Donald Trump. I'm not. But I have to call it like it is. Let me give you this update. Right, Doc? My legs probably look, if I show you guys my legs, you probably be like, they're kinkles. You probably won't. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. He's still the President of the United States. You have to pray for him and his family.
From our affiliate Fox 5 in DC on the ground. We're going to bring her in just a moment, but take a look at this social media post. 5 patients remain hospitalized after a deadly bus crash on Interstate 95 in Stafford County killed 5 people and injured dozens more. That's according to the latest update from Mary Washington Healthcare. And Regina Ureta with Fox 5 DC, you were there for the NTSB hearing. What can you tell us about what was said? Yeah, well, Alexandra, just like you heard a moments ago, NTSB investigators are now working to determine what led up to this deadly bus crash on Interstate 5 that happened on Friday night. It left 5 people dead and dozens injured. There was a briefing that happened close to the crash site, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I got to tell you, it's been an incredibly difficult time for family members of the victims. We've been speaking to some of the relatives. Unfortunately, they did not want to speak on camera, but we did talk to them over the phone. One of them sharing this family photo of the victims who died in one of the crash involving that car. I want to pull up that family picture of the Doncevs. Family members sharing this picture and confirming their identities. On the right, Dimitri and Ekaterina on the far left, along with their 2 children, Emily and Mark. They were among the people killed overnight. The family was on their way to a family wedding in South Carolina. On the phone, Dimitri's brother told me the family was very active in their local church. Their daughter played the piano. They were in the church choir while Dimitri was a nurse. They migrated from Moldova and had lived in Greenfield, Massachusetts for more than 10 years. And as mentioned, it's been an incredibly difficult time for the family of the Doncevs. The crash happened overnight on Interstate 95 near mile marker 146. According to Virginia State Police, a charter bus carrying dozens of passengers from New York to North Carolina failed to stop, crashing into a car ahead of it, killing the 5th victim, who police identified as 25-year-old Priscilla Mafalda from Massachusetts. The impact triggered a chain reaction crash involving at least 6 vehicles, one of those cars carrying the Doncevs family. The bus driver was injured but survived. Police identified him as 48-year-old Jing Dong of New York, who obtained his commercial driver's license in 2024. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is now questioning the driver's qualifications, saying Dong does not speak English and should not have been operating a commercial bus. But NTSB is looking into it. So take a listen.
One of the things we do, as a matter of course, is we do a 72-hour look back to see what the driver's activities were during the days leading up to the crash. So we're looking for, sleep issues, distraction issues, potential drug and alcohol issues. I'm not saying that there's any of that involved here, but those are the sorts of things we want to look at.
So today, NTSB outlined its investigative plan. A 6-member team will examine weather conditions, crash data, the design of the construction zone, and the traffic backup that formed before the collision. As for the driver, they'll determine whether alcohol or drugs played a role, while also reviewing his driving history and activities in the days leading up to the crash. Here's more from Tom Chapman, the NTSB board member.
Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again. We will not be determining the probable cause of the crash while we were on scene, nor will we speculate about the cause. These are the first steps in a lengthy investigative process. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened.
And Alexandra, the driver has been charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Other charges are pending. I should also mention that NTSB investigators said that the site on scene, they will be reviewing it for the next couple of days, at least a week, but a preliminary report won't come out until the next 30 days. So we'll try to keep our viewers updated and, of course, try to get more details about this, but just a really sad day here in Stafford County.
Yeah, absolutely a devastating story. Regina Ureta with Fox 5 DC. We appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your reporting.
Thank you.
Next up, we want to talk about just a horrible situation that took place in Virginia earlier this morning. A huge crash from a bus. It struck multiple vehicles. Take a look at the picture here, unfortunately killing multiple people and injuring dozens. For more on this, we want to go out right now to Fox 5 DC's Bob Barnard joining us here with the latest in the tragic accident.
Oh, it's just awful, Mike. We are outside Stafford Hospital here in Stafford, Virginia, just south of D.C. 12 of those who were injured in this crash were brought here. We're told all of them were treated and basically released as patients, although they were cared for here until they could make arrangements to continue on their journey to North Carolina. That's where the bus involved in this crash was heading to, from New York City to North Carolina. There are about half a dozen other patients.
Yeah, that was kind of crap. Oh, were you guys watching that? Were you guys watching that? I'm sorry.
At Mary Washington Hospital, that's in Fredericksburg, Virginia, just south of here. Some of them were told in life-threatening condition. Sadly, 4 members of one family were killed in this crash. They were from a town called Greenfield in Massachusetts. That's in north central Mass.
I'm sorry, you guys.
Skybox over the scene this morning, I-95 in Stafford County, mile marker 146 near Quantico, Virginia. You can see the bus there where it finally came to a stop in the median. It had been traveling southbound on 95 from New York City to Charlotte, North Carolina. You can see the tracks of its tires, a long path of flattened grass through the median after it left the highway.
He just comes flying up the side, just barely missed us. He's in the ditch.
One passing motorist shot this video right after the crash, just after 2:30 this morning. You can see people being evacuated off the bus. One police officer there on scene almost immediately.
I wonder if their brakes went out or something.
It missed us, and it could have been us because we had just hit that lane. And, I'm like, we just dodged a bullet. But man, when I heard people that actually, I was hoping that nobody actually died.
Stafford County fire officials say 5 people were killed, 37 injured in the crash. 4 people in one SUV died at the scene. A couple in their mid-40s, a 13-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. A passenger in that car, which caught fire, was critically injured and flown to a hospital in Fairfax County.
So we've got an approximately 25-year-old male that was found as a passenger rear seat in an SUV that had heavy damage and 3 fatalities in the same vehicle. Patient was found alert and responsive.
Virginia State Police say the crash happened as all traffic approaching a construction zone was slowing in the southbound lanes, except the bus. For first responders, it was chaos and carnage. Katie Brady is with Stafford County Fire and Rescue.
Some of the things that I know our providers saw are probably going to stick with them for a while. And we do have those channels and avenues for support that we will be working on with them.
The bus is operated by E&P Travel out of Kings Mountain, North Carolina. All they would tell us is that they're cooperating with the authorities. The interstate's southbound lanes were closed for a time, reopening as the day progressed. Transportation Safety Board says it has sent a GO team here to Stafford County to work with Virginia State Police. They're heading up the investigation, of course, trying to learn why that bus didn't slow with the rest of traffic. Was it a mechanical issue, a driver issue? Witnesses say it scraped along the guardrail before it eventually went into the median. That was after it crashed into those 6 other cars. The driver, a gentleman named Jing Dong, 48 years old, of Staten Island, New York, was also injured in the crash, and we're told by Virginia State Police, Mike, that the charges are pending.
Bob, seeing those images of what those really commuters and people that were just in their car as they were driving by and seeing this, it had to be a horrible scene.
How are you feeling, Claude?
Yeah. We heard from that gentleman there who witnessed it, put that video on Facebook. We tracked him down, and he said that it was the bus and some other cars were passing him quickly. And again, they thought that the bus could have hit them, seeing sparks flying off the guardrail before it went into the median, and it continued on for quite some distance before coming to a stop. It basically stopped right before like a little pond there in the median. There were 34 people on the bus. The latest word from Virginia State Police is that 44 people in all were injured. And yes, I mean, there weren't as many people on the road at 2:30 in the morning as there would be at 2:30 in the afternoon here in Northern Virginia. we're a suburb of Washington, D.C., a very heavily traveled part of the interstate here. But for those who were there, I mean, it was awful.
Yeah, horrible. Bob, thanks so much for joining us, as always, giving us this update. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Right here on Live Now.
I got to get to these, to the ICE
Condolences to those impacted by this tragedy.
This one. But you guys know, there's so much going on in this world. I'm going to do what's tomorrow, Sunday? Hopefully I'll do a regular stream for you guys later so we can talk about some of this stuff before the week starts. But let's get to the protest. There's another No Kings protest being planned in the Coachella Valley. I will be there wearing my lovely blue. I didn't mean to accent my chest, but wearing blue, okay? And I'll be boots on the ground. I would like to be boots on the ground with my daughter, but she's a little too liberal for me. I think I'm gonna do this by myself, you know. So I will be there. Let me give you guys this. What do you mean it's Sunday now? I don't know. Did I say something else? I made blue look lovely. Yes, you guys just wish me luck because some of those old ladies at the No King protest get a little rowdy. But I'll be there with their dinosaur dressing selves. But I'm going to be so respectful and so blue that day. So maybe Christina was. I can't even fake it. I can't even say those words. Maybe he was right. All right, you guys, here.
Well, take a look at this wild video. Protests erupting outside a New Jersey ICE facility, and they got violent very quickly, defying New Jersey's Democratic governor, who just announced peaceful protected protest zones outside Delaney Hall. And now a New Jersey man is facing charges for allegedly kicking and biting ICE officers. We are expecting more protests today, so let's go live to Newark, New Jersey, where our Steve Harrigan is ready for anything. Steve, what does it look like behind you?
Aisha, those protests already underway here. We've got a small pro-ICE group here, about 24 people, and then several hundred anti-ICE protesters. They're pretty much cursing at each other, separated by some of those metal barricades. The goal over the past 24 hours was to set up a safe zone, this according to the governor, where people could protest peacefully. That did not happen last night. Instead, we saw state police march in after being unable to clear the road. They used shields and batons and then used pepper spray and flashbangs to try and clear the protesters out, about several hundred strong. This is what that scene looked like last night.
Another explosion there of tear gas. It's clear these protesters were here to fight. Just around 10 p.m. things changed.
Hi, Eric.
Cases and cases of water out to wash their eyes when that tear gas hits. And that's what's going on now. The confrontation between the two sides for control of these streets out in front of the detention center.
As often happens, the crowd really changes after 10 o'clock. Then it was mainly young people, a lot of them with helmets on, with gas masks, looking for a fight. The question now is, how long is that fight going to continue? We've heard from the Attorney General saying this can't go on. He's talking about some of the agents being bitten in scuffles in the crowds. But it looks like they're gearing up for probably more trouble after dark here once again. Aisha, back to you.
Okay. We know you will keep an eye on that very closely for us, Steve. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you live as soon as something happens. Meantime, listen to this.
My administration will be working together with community members, faith leaders, advocates, and state police to help people move there today. Our top priority is public safety, and we need to take this opportunity to lower the temperature now.
Well, that is New Jersey's Democratic Governor Mikey Sherrill finally bringing in the state police to help calm the area. Let's bring in former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf to help us unpack this picture that we're watching unfold out in New Jersey. Chad, welcome to the program. So she just announced a protest zone around the Delaney Center facility. State police has finally been brought in after we saw so many scuffles this week back and forth. Why did it take so long for this Democratic governor to bring in law enforcement?
Yeah, it's a great question. She should have done this really on day one. If you establish a protest zone, and then you have local police there that are enforcing that. That allows ICE obviously to withdraw a little bit. It allows them not to have their officers front and center, and local police can do that job. That's something that a lot of us, for months had hoped Minneapolis would do during that in January and February. They didn't do that. So it's good that the governor's coming to this. It's several days late, unfortunately. What you see there is these protests getting more and more violent overnight, particularly in the, after 10 p.m. And I think it's only a matter of time before someone gets seriously injured. And hopefully that won't occur. Hopefully by having local law enforcement in there, it will help. But, just as the governor says she wants to, reduce the temperature there, the things that she is doing, the things that her state is doing with sanctuary policies are doing anything but that. So she needs to match her actions with her words.
There's plenty of words being thrown out there and threats by these protesters. The governor makes no mention of the threats against these ICE officers, including this one. Watch this with me here, Chad.
I'll kill your whole family. Your whole family's dead. Come on. Children, your wife, all dead. Punch it. My boy, I have your face. You're dead.
Look at that.
Dead.
And now prosecutors are going after this guy. The Justice Department just charged a rioter named Brendan John Gear, they say, for allegedly kicking and biting ICE officers at Delaney Hall last night. And they say, we will not tolerate the vicious attacks on ICE officers we've seen in New Jersey the last few days. These rioters are clearly not peaceful protesters, as you can see from the photos and these horrific wounds. Assault a federal officer, you'll be held accountable. The president has come out and said he believes that these are paid protesters. What do you think, and who do you think is paying them?
Yeah, that's most likely what we see here, particularly as this, the events of Delaney Hall continue day after day after day. 1 or 2 days, it could just be simple protests, but after that, you start to see professionals move into the picture. That's when it becomes usually more violent, more organized, and that's what we see here. And it's not peaceful protesting. You may have a portion of that group that is not violent, but a portion certainly is. And then that's where law enforcement officers have to use the appropriate amount of force to make sure that they're not only protecting themselves, but they're protecting that facility as well. So what we see there at night is just what we saw in places like Seattle and Portland and Minneapolis, is that at night it starts to get very violent. And then that's where you need local police, ICE, and others working together to diffuse the situation. But, when I hear Governor Sherrill say that, that it's ICE, it's federal law enforcement that is antagonizing this day after day. She is blaming law enforcement for violent agitators. That's what's going on here. It's absolutely the wrong message I think it sends to folks in New Jersey and elsewhere. The police there and ICE there have a job to do. It is their facility. They are holding individuals that have broken immigration law. There's nothing that they're doing that is beyond the law. They have a job to do, and they need to do that.
Before we go, Chad, I just want everybody at home to see this. A lot of this started because there were complaints about what this ICE facility was feeding these illegal immigrants inside the facility. They were saying it was awful food, it was spoiled food. Our Alexis McAdams got a hold of the menu, and we'll put it up on the screen here. This is the Delaney Hall menu for today. And for breakfast, they had farina, which is like a cream of wheat, fried eggs, bread, coffee, milk. For lunch, they're having chicken salad. And for dinner, a variety of items: jambalaya, chicken patty, beef and bean burrito, Salisbury patty with gravy. Before we let you go, Chad, how are these ICE facilities treating these illegal immigrants?
Yeah, look, there are national standards for all of these ICE facilities, including Customs and Border Protection facilities as well. And these standards are at the highest than you will see at local jails or county jails, or even to some of the state penitentiaries as well. Very, very high standards. And then there are internal groups. There's 4 different groups inside DHS that go out and inspect these facilities. And then there are outside groups that go out and inspect these facilities. So this idea that somehow they're subpar conditions, or they're not, getting the right food, or they're not getting the right medical care. They even allow for mental health checks for some of the detainees. And so in many instances, these detainees there are getting some of the best health care that they have likely ever received in their life. And so when I hear that the facilities, this is from the left has done this years and years and years. It doesn't matter the facility, whether it's Delaney Hall or elsewhere, they will talk about how it's bad conditions, it's bad food, you're not getting medical care. That's not actually what they care about. They want these facilities closed. They don't believe anyone should be in detention. And just like the Biden administration, they want them all released on parole and into every American community.
Yeah, well, that's not happening under this administration. Chad Wolf, thank you for joining us on this breaking news. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube. And
that is absolutely insane. Can you guys handle one more? I keep saying that. Bro, I'm going to leave you be. But yeah, let me look up the next protest while this video plays. But you know how I feel about this kind of stuff. This is not covered by the Constitution. This is breaking the law. I think this is where, yeah, here.
Evans. We do have a bit of breaking news that we want to get to at this hour. I first want to take you
Look at
back
this.
out there to New Jersey. We've
go
been
back.
watching all of this unfold as there have been several protests erupting there outside of the Delaney Hall. This is a ICE detention facility in New Jersey. And right now there's an update that an anti-ICE agitator
Look at
has been charged with biting an ICE officer. And so what we're going to do is continue to give you this update here on Live Now from Fox, as we're also watching very closely this live vantage point that we have there as officers are now standing off on the other side against some of those protesters who are there outside of the facility. I want to put this up on the screen. This is courtesy of Fox News, giving us a bit more details and pictures about what has occurred here. So what we know, according to Fox, is that an anti-U.S. immigration and customs enforcement agitator has been hit with federal charges. This after those gnarly photos that you see there on your screen are now showing a bloody bite mark after he allegedly made it into federal agents' arms during these violent clashes outside of the Delaney Hall Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, zero.
And so that person has since been identified as Brendan John
Right,
Greer.
Steve
He's a
John.
26-year-old from Madison, New Jersey, who's a part of agitators who were blocking the road near Delaney Hall on Thursday night. This is when ICE deportation officers instructed the group to move out of the way, according to the Department of Justice. He has since been charged again with federal crimes. And Fox News is saying that the group allegedly ignored the commands and instead violently engaged with the officers, according to the DOJ. They say specifically Greer engaged in a struggle with deportation officers, kicking officers and ultimately biting an officer's forearm and another's knuckle. Both victims have since received treatment at a local hospital, according to those prosecutors. So I'm going to put this back up on your screen. This is the live vantage point that we currently have, as we're now seeing several different factions showing up outside of this Delaney Hall ICE detention facility. There are those who are in favor of this ICE facility and some of President Trump's immigration policies, coming here to counter protest the protesters who are outside against that ICE facility and don't want this detention facility to be open there in the region. And so we're going to watch and continue to see how all of this is unfolding. But I also want to put this on your screen from Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche saying this. Today, the Justice Department charged a rider, Brendan John Greer, for allegedly kicking and biting ICE officers at Delaney Hall last night. We will not tolerate the vicious attacks on ICE officers we've seen in New Jersey the last few days. These riots are clearly not, quote, peaceful protests. As you can see from the photos of these horrific wounds, assault a federal officer, you will be held accountable. And so once again, Brendan John Greer has been charged with assaulting federal officers and causing bodily injury and appeared before a U.S. magistrate judge just yesterday. And so we'll continue to keep you updated on this situation as we've heard from several different sides. Also continuing to monitor these live feeds as they're still coming into our newsroom at this hour, as all of these folks are gathered outside of the Delaney Hall ICE detention facility. So right now, let's take the opportunity to sort of pump up the audio. We do know that, again, viewer discretion is advised at this time, as sometimes these clashes can get a bit more violent here on Live Now from Fox, but we want to bring you this feed live, raw, and unfiltered, so you can also see and hear as it's happening. I do want to warn you ahead of time, we're going to do our best to keep any signage with offensive language off of the screen, but also viewer discretion is advised as we're watching this. All right, so that's kind of what we are watching here. As you can see, the side that we were just seeing a few seconds before that were some of those anti-ICE protesters there. But on this side, you can even see some of the signage that's there. There are a lot of Make America Great Again hats, gun owners for Trump. So these are those who are in support of this ICE detention facility there in Newark, New Jersey. And so these are sort of anti-ICE protesters clashing with ICE supporters as well. There is a barrier between the two, but we're still seeing and watching as shouting is going back and forth between these two groups who have very different ideologies, all surrounding this detention facility there in Newark, New Jersey. And I want to show you this additional vantage point that we have there. Bear with us because the cameras are moving pretty frequently on the ground here, but there are also officers that we're able to see there at this detention facility as well, and their presence. So again, this camera shot is moving pretty frequently. Just a second ago, you can still see in the top part of the screen all of those officers who are there outside of this detention facility, there to protect it from both sides of these groups now gathering there as well. And so I'm going to put this one back up on your screen, yet another vantage point that we have of these clashes ongoing. Let's see if we are able to lift up the audio and continue to listen in.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
See, that mess is crazy. That just makes me so angry.
All right, as you can see there on your screen, folks still going back and forth, talking with one another. Different ideologies clashing there outside of this ICE detention facility in Newark, New Jersey. Delaney Hall, we've even heard the governor of New Jersey speaking out about all of this. And so in just a few moments, in fact, after we slide away for a 2-minute commercial break, we're going to listen into some of those comments that she made in the last few days. And she's also...
So what do you guys think about that? Oh, wait, hold on.
I felt my face contract.
Happy early birthday, Zero. Story girl, happy birthday to your son. Early birthday. Where are we up? Maybe that's so early. Doc. Oh, like, dang. Good thing can you guys see this?
Democrats who want to focus on the midterms are reportedly fuming over former First Lady Jill Biden's book tour as she delivers a play-by-play campaign of the 2024 race, including former President Joe Biden's disastrous debate performance.
Madeline Rivera is live in Washington with all the details. Hi, Maddie.
Good morning, Carly and Todd. That's right. Former First Lady Jill Biden's new book is coming under a lot of scrutiny for some nuggets that she shared. For one, she says she was frightened by former President Joe Biden's debate performance in 2024 and thought he might have been having a stroke or that he was drugged. But at the time, she defended her husband's debate performance, his team chalking up his stumbles to a cold. Democrats are reportedly angry that the former First Lady is bringing up these old wounds as they try to win back Congress. One Democrat who worked as a senior aide in the Biden era tells the New York Post, "I think Jill Biden must have had a stroke herself to think that her husband was up to the job." Still, she insists her husband was not in cognitive decline, even as she admits he was slowing down.
Did you ever see signs that he was falling into cognitive decline?
No.
People were saying he wasn't the same Joe Biden.
Well, I don't think that's true. He was the essence of the same Joe Biden. But yeah, he was slowing down. He was getting older. I mean, we all observed that. When it's a very intense job. I think it ages you quickly.
Jill also says she disagreed with former President Biden's initial refusal to pardon their son, Hunter. Per an excerpt obtained by the Associated Press, she wrote, "In the end, it felt like in working so hard to be impartial, we guaranteed that Hunter would meet the worst possible legal fate. Joe might have gone too far, in my opinion, to show that his family was being treated with complete impartiality." Jill also shares she was fired from Northern Virginia Community College in 2023 after the grant used to pay her salary dried up. Ultimately, though, the issue was resolved and she kept her teaching position until she left in December 2024. Carly and Todd.
Maddie, thank you. Let's bring in senior writer for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor Joe Concha. And Joe, there are a lot of angles to take on this story, but there's one that seems to rise above all else, and I'm going to repeat it here. If you think your husband has had a stroke, you immediately head to the hospital. You don't immediately head to a Waffle House. Why is she doing this, Joe?
Well, she's got to eat, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, after that debate, she did go to Waffle House with her husband. Obviously, syrup, butter, waffles, probably not great for the heart at that point. And guys, look, the Bidens are worth somewhere around $10 million. You could draw your own conclusions as to why that is. So why write a book if you're Dr. Jill Biden and air all this laundry that she's talking about now? She disagrees with Hunter Biden being pardoned. Well, all right, take that up with your husband privately. You got to put that in a book so you can sell a couple more copies. And also, zero people not named Biden are buying Jill Biden's contention that what happened at that debate was a one-off in terms of his brain turning to mashed potatoes for the world to see. His cognitive decline was apparent for years, dating all the way back to the 2020 campaign to that point. And again, look, if she is going to lead a chant of 4 more years at the Waffle House like she did after that debate, while praising her husband for answering every question perfectly, she was willing to put her husband, who clearly she was worried about either having a stroke or going through this cognitive decline, she wanted him back in there until 2029 because she really, really wanted to be first lady and all the power and prestige that goes with that, and was willing to just basically allow her husband to be in the most stressful job in the world when clearly he needed to retire at that point. So I can't imagine a worse spouse that you could think of in this country right now. But there's Jill Biden. And I can't imagine any Democrat or Republican buying this book when it goes on sale next week, because it just shows that she is somebody who was only interested in her own power instead of the welfare of her husband, Carly.
And as you might imagine, Joe, quickly, Democrats not happy with this as they head into midterms. They want the focus to be on all the issues. They do not want the focus to be on this. So they are not.
Yeah,
happy
one
with
Democrat
this,
operative said that they needed this news cycle, like somebody needs a hole in their head. So yeah, not happy to say the least. And I feel like this is the first lady trying to restore some of her own legacy in a way, and by continuously lying and in sort of different ways, depending on what she's saying, it feels like she's only making things worse for herself. But Joe, we also want to get to this because late night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel took on Spencer Pratt in his LA mayoral campaign last night. Listen to what he had to say.
His profession is to be the screaming jerk on reality shows. Mayor should not be your first job. The mayor of LA is in charge of a $14 billion annual budget. Spencer Pratt is not the person who should be in charge of it.
You know, when I watch this, no shock that he's criticizing Spencer Pratt. And in a way, it's sort of good for Pratt because it's like clearly he's getting the attention that he needs to really potentially shake things up here.
Absolutely, Carly. And you watch these monologues and you don't laugh. I mean, that's kind of the point. That's what Jimmy Kimmel gets paid millions of dollars to do. Instead, it's these screeds saying that, well, Spencer Pratt should be in charge of Los Angeles. So Karen Bass, who's at 25% approval, should. Kimmel lives in a gated community, by the way, multi-million-dollar mansion in Los Angeles. He's an elitist who is among those 17,000 people who saw their homes either badly damaged or burned to the ground during those wildfires 18 months ago. And the fact that he is so reflexively anti-anyone who doesn't have a D next to their name shows he has no courage or moral compass. At least Bill Maher, who lives in Los Angeles, is willing to call Democrats like Karen Bass out. And Spencer Pratt is running on 4 very simple issues, guys. He wants people's homes to be rebuilt much faster than is happening now. He wants the homeless problem and that crisis, it's not even a problem, it's a crisis, to be addressed the right way. He wants all those addicted to drugs to get the help that they need. And he wants rampant fraud and abuse to cease to exist. And oh, by the way, he wants parks to have more kids playing in it again than needles to step on, as is the current situation now. Jimmy Kimmel, for whatever reason, has a big problem with that because he is for the status quo and he doesn't feel all these problems because of all the millions that Disney pays him to be shielded from that. It's really that simple. And to watch this show and these monologues to go on and on about Spencer Pratt, the guy is supposed to be an entertainer and give us escapism at 11:35 at night. And now it's a bad version of MSNBC meets CNN. It's really that simple.
Yeah, and the Los Angeles Times latest polling shows Karen Bass still in first, Nithya Raman in second, Spencer Pratt in third, all very close poll numbers. So this isn't over until it's over. We will soon find out what happens because the election's next week, but he is certainly sparking a lot of conversations that many people in LA feel like are desperately needed to be had. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Joe.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube. And catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Welcome back.
It looks like the next King's protest is June 26th, so I'll be there talking about Trump. No, I'll be there boots on the ground. June 26th. Oh, mercy, that's coming up. Let me just play. That's coming up, you guys. So I'll be there. Wish me luck. Hopefully I get some good footage for you.
It's Priebus, Fox News political analyst and former RNC chairman, along with Fox News contributor and American radio show host Richard Fowler, the dream team here with me on this Saturday. I want to get to the midterms in just a second, you guys, but I want to start with the 180 that Jill Biden pulled on the Democrats, actually, have left them sort of wondering, why are you even talking? Let's play the bite here. The before and after on how she felt about her husband's performance on the debate stage, that infamous day against Donald Trump. Watch this.
You did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Okay, so Richard, just be real with me. Is Joe Biden a liar? Somebody's lying somewhere.
They could be. And let me just say this about this Joe Biden sort of story that has emerged itself. I don't think Democrats want to be talking about it. The Biden administration ended in 2024. Kamala Harris lost that election. And with that being said, I think if you look at the Democratic autopsy, what people are complaining about in the Democratic autopsy is the fact that this portion, the ideal of switching candidates midterm, the ideal that maybe Joe Biden shouldn't have run for a second term, are all missing from the autopsy. While there's a lot of folks on the ground saying this autopsy didn't do the job it was supposed to do, and right now Democrats are focused on winning in places like Iowa, in places like California, and they do have a message to run on. We just saw Grady Trimble talk there about what's happening to Iowa's farmers right now. 46% of there's a surge in bankruptcies amongst farms. Fertilizer's up 100%, almost 100% because of the war in Iran. And that's what Democrats want to be talking about.
And that is very important. But I think everyone is talking about this sort of 180, Ryan. I mean, you brought up the autopsy report. I think that's a really good point. I think it makes this whole thing about the autopsy report coming out late and leaving out all these incredibly important details about the president's age out of it. I think it makes it a whole lot worse, right? When she comes out and all of a sudden she realizes, oh, yeah, he did a terrible job. In fact, I thought he was maybe drugged.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. They wrote an autopsy and they forgot the most important part, which is what was the cause of death? I mean, they left it out. But as far as this is concerned, look, I mean, here's the problem on the Republican side. I mean, these Democrats chased after Donald Trump like a Netflix crime series. And yet, when it comes to this issue, they completely lied. I mean, it's the lies stupid. I mean, that's what this is about. And so they conspired together. It wasn't just that they said, oh, he's okay. I mean, the DNC, Kamala Harris, all the Democrats said that he was sharp as a tack. He's got it together. He's great behind closed doors. And then when the Hur report came out and said that Joe Biden committed a crime, the conclusion was, even though he may have committed a crime, he's not a competent witness in this case because of his memory, because of all the things that we're talking about now. So the real issue now is that the DOJ is looking at wanting to release the video of these interviews. And now when privacy had nothing to do with it when it came to Trump, now we were talking about a right to privacy. So they said he's great behind closed doors, but that now they want to shut all the doors and move on. Yet, you know, Joe Biden is out there trying to sell books.
Well, and apparently Hunter is too, maybe. Richard, what are the Bidens doing? Why are they still talking? Why are they out there?
I think that Reince wants us to talk about Joe Biden instead of wanting us to talk about the economic outlook, which most Americans are thinking about in this moment. The 2024 election already happened. We know who occupies the White House. We know who controls both levers of powers in the Congress, the building right behind you, Ashni. And here's the truth of the matter. Voters are saying, I could care less about Joe Biden. I can care less about Joe Biden, but I do care about the fact that the rent is too high. I do care about the fact that the hospital in my neighborhood is closing down because of these cuts to Medicaid. And I think that is the argument that Republicans have to deal with. Instead of us talking about Joe Biden, mind you, I will say she's trying to sell books, so we're talking about her anyway.
Okay, let's talk about the midterms. Actually, we have a
right. And they're going to have to talk about the economy, and those guys are going to have to talk about the economy.
Yeah, write down that. I'm sorry.
On their chests. With talking about God being non-binary. So you can talk all you want, but the fact of the matter is, in a midterm election, it comes down to candidates.
It does.
And you guys have got.
And our candidates are winning in every poll that I've seen recently, Reince.
If you're any more left of center, you'd need a passport to get back to the middle. So that's what you're dealing with.
Okay, let me really quickly get to this because we're running out of time. We've got a midterm redistricting tracker, you guys. Let's put it up on the screen here. A lot of states still at play here, but Louisiana Louisiana just passed a new map that could give Republicans an extra seat here. Florida, Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama maps are still in progress. A couple lawsuits out there waiting for final passage. Ryan, to you, Justice Clarence Thomas, I don't think has issued a stay yet on the lower court blocking that new map there in Bama. Is that a bad sign for the GOP out there?
Well, I mean, it's not a great sign. I mean, you can't, you have to actually go to the Supreme Court now and win that case. But if you look at the reality on redistricting, I mean, this has fallen in the Democrats' face. I mean, even the Cook report yesterday, after all the redistricting battles and without a conclusion in Mississippi and no real conclusion here in Alabama, without that, Republicans are looking at 210 safe. Democrats at 207 safe. That leaves 18 seats up for grabs. And I think Richard knows as well as I do that even in those 18 seats, you've only got about 3,000 votes up for grabs. That's 54,000. And the Republicans have a 10-to-1 money advantage. I'm not saying that the wind isn't at our face, because in a midterm, it usually is with the president in power. I'm just saying things are a lot different than what you may appear to be.
Okay, Richard, quick response, and we got to go.
Listen, I don't think Reince's math is mathing there, and I'll tell you why. Because if it were right, and if it was supposed to be so easy for Republicans to win this midterm election, they wouldn't be busy redrawing maps all across the country. Truth of the matter is, what it's going to come down to for voters, whether you live in Alabama, whether you live in South Carolina, or whether you live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, how am I doing? Is my life better than it was yesterday? And for many of those Americans, the truth of the matter is it isn't. They're seeing their rent going up. They're seeing they're seeing healthcare go up. And for many of America's farmers, like we said at the beginning, they're worried about their farm going into bankruptcy because the cost of fertilizer has doubled under this administration, and the administration doesn't seem to have answers. Donald Trump said himself, I don't really care about affordability right now. I'm focused on making sure Iran doesn't have a nuke in the Iran quagmire that we currently continue to be in.
National security. Okay, Ryan Richard, thank you very much.
And yet the generic ballot is 50-50.
There we
We'll
go.
see. We'll see.
There we
We'll
go.
see.
We still got a ways, 5 months, 5 months away. Thank you both very much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube.
Why are you guys up? Why are you guys up with me? Did you guys know that cases of Lyme disease were starting to really surge right now? Did you guys hear about that?
Fox News alert: the president just spent 2 hours inside the Situation Room with his top generals and national security team, where he was supposed to have made a final determination on the Iran war. Before going inside of the room, POTUS said this: Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, and the nuclear dust will be unearthed by us.
I'll give it to you after.
47 adding the United States is the only country, along with China, with the mechanical capability of doing so. The terms of the first phase of the deal are that the strait must be immediately open. No tolls, nothing. Iran will have to immediately remove and detonate all mines left in the Gulf. And in exchange, the president says our naval blockade will slowly be lifted. Ships caught in the strait due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted, may start the process of heading home. Say hello to your wives, husbands, parents, and families from me, your favorite president. That's only if Iran holds up their end of the bargain. The Iranians are begging for unfrozen cash, but the president says no money will be exchanged until further notice. According to sources, the deal is close, but the president's still debating over what to do with the funds. We have them by the bitcoins.
I believe that we have seized about $1 billion of their crypto. And just outright seized it. Just outright grab the wallets. Some of them may be like typing in right now and realize they might not have realized that their wallet had been grabbed. And we are working with our allies all over Europe to grab villas and houses and properties.
The president knows the mullahs can't be trusted, but General Keane says turning the money spigot on and off is an effective form of control.
We know they're going to cheat. Look at this. Right now, what's taking place just this week alone with the violation of the ceasefire in the Straits of Hormuz. Who's doing that? The Iranians are doing that. I point this out because it reminds us who we really are dealing with here. They are likely to want to cheat. Now, we've got good leverage points here. We have the money. We have their frozen assets, and we have sanctions. So we can meter that out based on how their behavior is changing and what their level of commitment is.
Reports also say that Iranian officials have proposed letting American companies, including energy companies, do business inside its borders, AKA we're getting the oil. Is this finally the deal that we've been waiting for? Who the hell knows with the Iranians? Here's Scotty B.
The first level leaders decapitated, the second level decapitated. So we're dealing with the third level. And it's very tough because on one side, we have a theocracy with the clerics. On the other side, we have a thugocracy with the IRGC. And you've got to convince both sides.
Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich is convinced that President Trump is on the edge of a historic victory. It's not just a win militarily against Iran, but the president's been able to unite the Arab world against them and unite the Jews and Arabs, kind of. That's real power. Just today, Rubio met with ministers from Pakistan, the middlemen of the deal. 15 years ago, Pakistan was hiding bin Laden, and now they're helping us make peace. Still don't fully trust them, but we've come a long way. Trump's led a coalition of allies, reshaped the Middle East, and set it on a hopefully prosperous path. If the Arabs have skin in the game, especially if they align with Israel, it's clear now Iran's everybody's problem. Here's JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon.
Maybe we should have done it like 25 years ago, get all the allied nations, get 500,000 troops around Iran and told them this is over. We're not putting up with this stuff anymore, because that would have been a better outcome. Because I do agree, Iran having a nuclear weapon may be the biggest threat facing mankind. Because if they have it, so will Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, South Korea, Philippines, Japan, Australia, and then I don't know how you stop real proliferation at that point.
Wall Street's bullish. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ hit all record highs today again. And crude's on track for its largest one-month decline in 6 years. It's down 20% in May. And gas prices are coming down, too. 49 out of the 50 states saw prices drop last week. Just not Alaska, but they're doing a lot of big business up there. Diamond says nothing beats the United States.
That America is still the beacon of light in the hill, is still the arsenal of democracy, the bastion of freedom. I'm quite patriotic in that, and that this country provides safety to the whole world. And it wasn't just our allies; it actually provides safety to India. People who are not allied nations, the United States of America. And I think the most important thing is we have the strongest military in the world, underpinned by the strongest economy in the world.
The Pentagon's still ready to strike if needed. Hegseth, swung by the USS Boxer in the Indo-Pacific, rocking a This Is War t-shirt. He went to make sure the boys were in tip-top shape, just in case.
It's an honor to be here. This is the best view, I'm convinced, looking out at all of you. It's not me, it's you guys. It's all of you. It's what you're ready to do. It's what the world knows you're prepared to do.
Zero, I don't know that much about lines.
You choose to serve. You choose to serve this great country in uniform, in harm's way, on behalf of the American people. And because of what you do and how you do it, I can sit at the table and talk about American deterrence.
Go Navy, I was in the Navy.
Godspeed in your mission.
Pistol Pete told him not to get too comfortable.
As the president said, I'm lost on time, 2 days ago now, in the cabinet meeting. I'm sitting right next to him. He looks in the camera and says, well, Iran can either do it the right way, with a deal across the table, or they can deal with my guy on the left. That happened to be me. But it's not me, it's you guys.
We're on the verge of an Iran deal, but the Secretary of War is solidifying our partnership in Asia. He went east for the Shangri-La conference in Singapore. Hegseth held meetings with Prime Minister Wang and others. China is watching. They know what's up. Over in our own backyard, the Pentagon just ordered 1,300 Marines and sailors to head on over to the Caribbean to support Operation Southern Spear, our mission against the drug cartels. Is Cuba next? Maybe. A.G. Blanche says he wants to see Castro's little bro nabbed and here on home soil. And the commander of Southern Command just met with senior Cuban military leaders at the edge of Guantanamo Bay. First time that's ever happened in history. We'll have to see, but life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. Ferris Bueller. Harley Littman's a foreign policy expert and geopolitical analyst. Harley, the no dust, no deal paradigm, you like that?
It's great. That was the main purpose here. And people have to realize that if Iran were to ever get a nuclear bomb, they have made it very clear it has one address, and that's the United States. They were building ICBMs that have the sole purpose to carry a nuclear warhead on it. And that's one of the remarkable successes of our fighting against Iran. We virtually wiped out their ICBM capability, but they could reconstitute it, so we have to be careful.
Sorry.
The economic squeeze that Scotty B's putting on them. We're seizing villas. We're seizing estates. They have them in Europe. They have them all over the world. Is that the kind of thing that really hurts?
Oh, yeah. Because if you hurt the pocketbooks of the mullahs who are corrupt and rich and own this property, it's going to be painful. It's a creative approach, and it speaks to President Trump's wisdom in trying to do a deal now, because it is really important to be mindful of the midterm elections. It's important to realize that inflation is going up, and we want to bring down the price of gas, which is what he's going to do. And that is very wise of President Trump. At the same time, we have to realize these mullahs are not giving up on jihad no matter what we do, unless in the end we break them. And I think ultimately that will be what I think and hope President Trump will do at a later date.
It seems like there is a strategy. You got the religious fanatics, and then you have the military brass over there. There is a strategy to kind of turn them against each other and then play them off of each other. Is that what we're doing?
I think so, but I'm a little skeptical, because I think the same way in Nazi Germany, they were all Nazis, the leadership, the generals, and the political leaders. Same thing here. They're all jihadists. They want to take over the world. And above all, when they say death to America every day for 47 years, they mean it. This is how they brainwash their people.
Do you think the American people, when this wraps up and we get a peace deal and hopefully we can destroy the uranium, they think they're going to go back and say, you know what, this was a good thing. This mission was righteous, because we should be having parades for the military men and women who actually achieved this success.
Without a doubt. And this will be Trump's legacy. Not that he brought down the price of gas below $4 a gallon, but his legacy will be that he prevented Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Biden didn't do it. Obama didn't do it. The previous 7 presidents didn't do it. For the first time, this president has the most leverage over Iran than any American president did in 47 years. It's really essential that he take full advantage of that. And this will be really a critical part of how the people in the world will remember him. And I think in the future, people will thank President Trump, because this is a universal theme. We don't want nuclear proliferation. They get a nuclear weapon, even if you don't, nation said they'll get one. And in that part of the world, someone's going to end up using one. So this is an American theme, and we're grateful to President Trump in finally tackling this problem.
Yeah, well, those Iranians are pretty crafty. What did they invent, you said?
You're right. We talked earlier. They invented chess, so they're very clever.
They invented chess. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. So let's make sure we get this right. Harley, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bezos's rocket goes boom. Plus, fraud files. Straight ahead. Be sure to
I didn't know that the guy's nuts. I thought that was pretty tame. Look at Christino. Go to bed. Why are you up? I need to go to bed. But look at, I don't know that much about Lyme disease, but I think it's important. Oh Lord, Tammy Lauren.
Secretary RFK Jr. is sounding the alarm on ticks.
Doctors diagnose 476,000 Americans with Lyme disease every year. This spring, Americans visited an emergency room for tick bites more than any other time in history. a clear sign that this threat is growing. Lyme disease affects all 50 states.
And he's right to be concerned. CDC data
We all
shows
know
tick
they said that,
bite-related
Kristen.
ER visits are at their highest level in nearly a decade. And it's not just ticks, as mosquitoes are also causing concern. They spread the dangerous dengue disease, with cases jumping 359% in 2024. Meanwhile, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin is squashing online rumors that the agency is releasing mosquitoes. We've got a lot of questions, so we got the perfect person. Joining us now is HHS Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary and Director of National Health Communications at the Office of the Surgeon General, Stephanie Herodopoulos. Stephanie, you have so many titles and you've earned them all. I want to jump in because this has been all over my feed with a lot of conspiracy theories. Folks are very concerned about the ticks. They think it's some kind of conspiracy. I've seen a lot of reporting that there are tick boxes being dropped at farms and ranches across the country. They feel that this is not just a natural uptick. They feel like something is being manipulated here. So I want to give you a chance to address those conspiracies, perhaps put our mind at ease. What is really going on here?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to use your platform to educate the public. Before we go into that, I just really want to look like bottom line up front. Let's talk about what Lyme disease is. After all, May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month because the season starts in the late spring and through the summer, right when everyone is going out to enjoy the great outdoors. Yes, it is true that the tick population has increased. It was confined to the Northeast. Now, actually, it can be found all throughout the United States. Now, Lyme disease is when you get bit by a tick and you get a bacteria that causes a disease. And that can start with fever, chills, rash, headaches, body aches, joint pain. So if you do get bit by a tick, please go to your doctor and be checked out. Now, your concern is valid, and I hear you, but I do want you to understand that we at HHS are doing everything through the leadership of Secretary Kennedy. I don't know if you know, him and his family, because they're from the Northeast, actually have been afflicted with Lyme disease. So he has put it front and center with a green light issue for us to figure out how do we prevent it, how do we then early detect it and treat it. And as you saw with the announcement yesterday in New Hampshire, a lot more funding is going towards that right now as we speak.
Back to the original question, why the uptick? Why the numbers going up? Why is it so much bigger of a problem this year than last year? My daughter contracted Lyme disease 2 years ago from a tick in Georgia. I grew up with ticks all over me. If I ever got it, no one ever told me about it. Why does it seem like it's worse, or is it not worse?
Well, I'll tell you, the ticks feed on the deer. The deer are multiplying and they're running. And the white-footed mouse is the carrier of the bacteria. And so, unfortunately, whether it be the weather or the moving of the white-footed mouse and the deer is changing and the borders are increasing. I really want clinicians to think about not only in the Northeast, but anywhere. If someone comes with symptoms, not just around when they got a tick bite, not everybody knows they got bit by a tick, by the way. It could put it on your differential diagnosis. We need to get clinicians to start diagnosing it and treating it rapidly. There are many factors. It's multifactorial. It could be that there's so many people going to the ER because we are doing a good job with awareness. But what we know is 31 million people a year are being bitten by ticks, and 500,000 unfortunately get Lyme disease. And I think that number is even skewed lower because the diagnostic tests are not that great, meaning the false negatives are high. We need better biomarkers, and we are working on that right now in real time. And of course, better treatment. So Secretary Kennedy is so dedicated to solving this problem during this administration.
And I believe that he is Assistant Secretary, but I got to address this because I don't want conspiracy theories going wild on social media, and I don't want some of these questions to go unanswered. we know how social media is, right? But sometimes we find that there's a kernel of truth to every larger conspiracy theory. So this notion that somehow there are ticks being planted, that there are ticks being put out by the government, that's what people are seeing on their timelines. They're getting very concerned. They're linking it this way and that way, and it's leading to a larger discussion online. So can you address that conspiracy so that the folks at home can have a better understanding, and so that their mind is maybe put at ease as to the government's involvement in this uptick in ticks?
Well, I have no insight to putting out boxes with ticks in it, not under my purview. But what I could tell you is in the Northeast, they might be putting feeding boxes out for actually the white-footed mouse to eat it. And maybe they would have an antibiotic that would prevent the mouse from actually getting the Lyme disease. That could be happening with the National Centers of Excellence in New England. That actually is not a bad idea, but we have to decrease the tick population. What you could do at home is cut your grass low. If you do go outside, wear protective clothing, have your pants tucked in your socks, use some DEET or permethrin. And by the way, there's going to be a new medication or over-the-counter spray called Nicotone that comes from a cedar tree that is more natural. That will be coming to market very soon for people who don't feel comfortable with permethrin. When you do get back to the house, shower off, look for ticks, pull them off, check your kids, check your dogs, of course, and put your clothes in the dryer so you can kill those ticks. Those are things you can do to prevent it in the first place.
Stephanie Herdopoulos, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. You spurred a great discussion, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now, when we were entering into this segment, Mark said, I don't really care about the ticks. And then we had a little side discussion in the commercial break about alpha-gal syndrome,
yes,
in which you get bit by a tick, and then you can no longer eat red meat. Now, these cases, to my knowledge, are also potentially rising.
Yeah.
So now I've got your attention.
Yes, you do.
So
If I can't eat red meat, I'm in trouble.
So now you're a little bit concerned. Listen, this is tick season.
Yep.
So when I talk to her about the conspiracies, it's not to scare people, but it is all over social media. So I think it's important when we have an official on to address some of these conspiracy theories so that people can know one way or another, at least they can feel like they've got some answers. Joey, you said your daughter had Lyme disease. This is nothing to joke about. I mean, Lyme disease is very, very serious. I'm so sorry that she had to go through that. But is this something that you're seeing in Georgia? Are you hearing folks say, hey, we feel like there are more ticks this year, or are there rising concerns?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. They obviously must still be trying to figure this out because she didn't have an answer. She gave very general answers like I think she said the deer are moving more or the mouse are moving more. And then the next question is, why is that happening? The largest explanation here is that the winters are milder and the ticks aren't getting killed off as quick or as much. That might be true. Part of it, too, is the housing crisis. Housing crisis happens. There's a housing boom. Now we're popping up subdivisions everywhere. Every time you do that, you're introducing people into where the ticks are, into where the deer and the mice are. And guess what? When you cut a hole in a forest and put houses there, you don't reduce the deer population. You actually grow it because they're edge dwellers and you're creating food and dwelling for them. They're not living in numbers and mass in the middle of the forest because now the food they eat has to find a way to grow through the trees. When you cut open a field, now the food they eat is available. And so that's something that a lot of people don't understand. So it could just be simply that we're putting houses in so many places that the carrier population is on the rise. That's probably a big part of it.
Madison, just quickly, you said you know somebody who has this alpha-gal. It's nothing to mess with.
No, it's not at all. A friend's mom has alpha-gal. It does make you allergic to red meat. Very dangerous. She has been hospitalized 3 separate times, all from a tick bite. And then you think about Lyme disease, and as Stephanie said, if it's not diagnosed, people can go years, have issues. I had a former colleague that had knee replacement because she thought she had an issue with running. Turns out she actually had Lyme disease and it was eating at her joint. So we need to have better awareness of these illnesses, especially if ticks are going up because of all these things. And it'd be great to have a cure or have real solutions if we're having things like, imagine if you couldn't eat red meat again.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be terrible.
And she mentioned the diagnostics. It takes weeks to get a test back if you test for Lyme disease. They had to start my daughter on the antibiotics, not knowing if she had it or not, because they'd have to wait too long to get the test back.
And by the way, the federal government is releasing millions of mosquitoes.
That is true.
Franken mosquitoes.
Listen, I told you, Mark, this was going to be a hot topic.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Now, listen.
Joining us now, the other Republican senator.
I would love to watch this video. But before I get out of here, you guys know I'm always here to educate. Always here to you know. Wait a minute, why am I echoing? I'm always here to educate. Oh, sorry about that. Always here to give you guys some information. So before I go to bed, I feel an obligation to share this with you. Hang on. I got you. And this isn't even Fox News, but let me give this to you. And I'll end it here. Let's go.
Iran.
The U.S. hit 3 nuclear sites in Iran overnight,
Bombing its key nuclear facilities.
a successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
Have to have
So
been.
if Iran didn't want nuclear weapons, why would they build nuclear facilities? I mean, facilities to build nuclear weapons. Make it make sense.
Very sure Iran was developing a nuclear weapon.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat.
Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that. And it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon.
But how do they know? For a long time, Iran has said it is not building a bomb, at least not at the moment.
ولی فعلا ما بنایی بر رفتن به سوی بمب اتم نداریم.
So let's try to understand Iran's position and why much of the West believes it is a lie. Iran's nuclear program is one of the most closely watched in the world and has been for decades. The International Atomic Energy Agency spent years piecing together accusations and evidence from the 80s and 90s, which raised serious questions about whether Iran was trying to build a bomb. Its attempt to obtain uranium, transform that uranium into fuel, develop a detonator, model nuclear explosions, even pack a prospective bomb into the warhead of a missile.
The U.S. intelligence community has long assessed that Iran has a nuclear weapons capability. Prior to 2003, Iran gained critical knowledge about the type of explosive that's necessary to build a nuclear device.
But one key conclusion from the world's nuclear watchdog, whatever Iran was doing, this emphasis on weaponizing nuclear power, the nagging fear of the possible military dimensions of its nuclear program, it all came to a stop in 2003.
They have politics, and we don't fully understand the internal politics, but they had a real nuclear weapons program until 2003, and then it was revealed publicly, and for reasons that very few people understand, the supreme leader halted the program.
Iran's supreme leader would even issue an oral fatwa, a religious decree, forbidding the development or use of any kind of weapon of mass destruction.
President Bush has said, vowed, he will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Do you believe it?
Well, basically, we are not looking for working for the bomb. We believe that the time of the bomb and its effectiveness is behind us.
But nuclear power, energy, that's different. Iran claims it is very much interested in developing that because the country does have a serious energy problem. Aging infrastructure and heavier consumption that's led to recurring blackouts over the last several years.
مسئولیتش که 100% با دولت هستش به خاطر اینکه اون موظفه که حداقل زندگی مردم که یه آب و برق دیگه امکانات دیگه که
Iran does have a nuclear power plant in Bushehr, right here on its southwestern coast, in operation for more than a decade. But let's take a closer look at what that plant does and whether it's plausible that Iran's nuclear program is, as they say, completely peaceful. An important thing to realize about any country's nuclear program is that there can be two components to it: making fuel or converting fuel into energy. A nuclear power plant, that makes energy. A uranium enrichment facility, that makes fuel. So one of the first things we wondered about Iran's energy needs was whether it is so truly dependent on nuclear power that it makes economic sense for it to make its own fuel. Because, just to give you an analogy, lots of people own cars, right? Very normal thing to own. It's much less normal, though, to own your own gas station, and it's even less normal than that to make your own gas. You could, but man, that's a lot of work, and the math wouldn't really add up, would it? So Iran's a big country, 90 million people, but the electricity it generates by nuclear power, just 1% of its total output. Natural gas represents the lion's share, and hydropower is a very distant second. So one thing that doesn't quite line up is Iran's massive expenditure of time, energy, and money, the billions of dollars, years of investment, and the procurement of highly sensitive, specialized equipment and expertise to enrich uranium, to make nuclear fuel from scratch.
Iran has likely spent hundreds of billions of dollars on their uranium enrichment program.
So at the low end, I've heard as close to $100 billion over the last 25 years. But if you add all the opportunity costs, including the U.S. sanctions and the international sanctions and export controls, it could be up to $500 billion.
And there is almost no nuclear-powered country in the world that does this quite like Iran does. Take France, with its 57 usable nuclear reactors. You know how many enrichment facilities it has to make the nuclear fuel it needs to power those reactors? Just one. How about Japan? 33 usable reactors, one enrichment facility. Canada has 22 reactors, and it does not enrich its own uranium at all. It buys it from the United States. Speaking of the US, it has more nuclear reactors and more nuclear weapons than any other country on Earth, but it too has just one enrichment facility. Finally, here's Iran. They've got one reactor, but at least two enrichment facilities, one of them buried hundreds of feet under a literal mountain, which the US just bombed, but where otherwise the outside world has had almost no way to reach.
Iran doesn't even need to enrich uranium domestically. It could join 23 other countries that forswear enriching uranium because it is not economic.
You got to ask yourself the question is, why does a nation with one single operating nuclear plant require an enrichment facility?
What hasn't quite added up for the international community about Iran's enrichment program is that they appear to be making far too little of the type of nuclear fuel that you would need to power a nuclear reactor. According to the latest numbers from the IAEA, but still prior to the airstrikes from Israel and the US, Iran's stockpile of reactor-grade uranium was just a little under 8,000 kilograms. For context, according to one nuclear industry association, that's far short of the estimated 27,000 kilograms you would need to keep a reactor of the size Iran has running every year. So for Iran to keep its Bushehr reactor running, it actually buys the uranium it needs.
Bushehr that's fueled by the Russians. So its immediate needs for domestically produced uranium are really non-existent.
At which point you might ask, what kind of nuclear fuel does Iran make? Well, again, according to the IAEA, Iran also has in its possession around 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. Because uranium enrichment happens on a spectrum. Enrich that uranium to around 3 to 5%, you've got reactor-grade nuclear fuel, good for a power plant. But keep going all the way to 90%. That's weapons grade, good enough to make a nuclear bomb. And those 400 kilos of highly enriched uranium in Iran's possession, it's been processed to 60%.
Enriched uranium is used for civil purposes in nuclear programs, including as fuel for nuclear reactors, but not when it's enriched to 60%, or at least not in Iran. There's no civil purposes for that.
According to the IAEA's latest assessment, the fact that Iran is the only non-nuclear weapon state in the world that is producing and accumulating uranium enriched to 60% remains a matter of serious concern. And it's been a concern for a while. Leading up to recent airstrikes on Iran, there has been mixed messaging from the US government as to exactly how close it believes Iran is to making a usable nuclear weapon.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
That's Trump's head of national intelligence back in March, followed by a very sudden change in June.
And your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
By this point, Tulsi Gabbard had since amended her assessment to make clear that Iran could make a nuclear weapon within weeks to months if it wanted to. Now, the US government has never revealed what piece of intelligence it now has that has led it to do to Iran what no US administration dared to do in decades.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
But one critical consideration would have been that it wouldn't be that hard for Iran to continue refining its stockpile of 60% enriched uranium all the way to 90 weapons grade. Because the hardest part is simply starting the process. Once you've gotten going, it gets easier.
Once you
Sebastian,
go
which one?
upwards of the 20% range, it's easier in many respects, but the technology is the same.
Basically, all of the work is removing stuff at the beginning. Going from 60 to 90% is pretty easy.
In general, it's likely that Iran could produce enough weapons grade uranium for up to 8 to 10 bombs within a matter of weeks.
Oh,
They probably produce the first bomb's worth in just a matter of days.
But keep in mind, that's just the time frame to create the required fuel for a bomb. Then you have to turn it into a weapon that can be fired at an enemy far away. Iran is fully capable of building the type of ballistic missile that could, in theory, deliver a nuclear warhead. We've already seen non-nuclear versions of those missiles hit Israel. But there's still a lot of uncertainty around this question of once Iran makes weapons-grade fuel, how quickly it can make a launchable weapon of it.
Are you saying there that the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization?
That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's an irrelevant question.
No,
They have
but that is
everything
the
they need
key
to build a
point in
weapon.
U.S. intelligence assessment. You know
No,
that.
it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's not.
But setting that aside, here's what the US knows, that there is a history of Iran hiding key elements of its nuclear program. There is a history of watchdog claims that Iran doesn't cooperate with inspectors. And if Iran's nuclear program was really just about nuclear power, there's a history of dots that don't connect. Uranium enrichment that shouldn't happen, wrapped in an economic model that makes little sense. But what may become a more important question over time than how close did the US think Iran was to making a nuke is how close are they now?
Early intelligence finds the U.S. strikes perhaps only set Iran's nuclear program back by months.
The answer to that, very few people know.
I'm not sure how people could say Iran does not want nuclear weapons. I don't know how you guys think that. What's business? It just, isn't there a scripture in the Bible that talks about knowledge and our people perishing for lack of knowledge. Isn't there a scripture in the Bible? I'm not about to preach to you guys, but it is Sunday. And I have to be ready for church pretty soon. So
what does the U.S. want to see in terms of concessions from Iran? And will they concede on those items?
Well, they want no nuclear enrichment. They do not want the stockpiles of the enriched uranium.
Morning,
there.
Scott.
They do not want any ballistic missiles, and Iran has an arsenal that really is dangerous to the U.S. troops in Israel in the
Morning,
region.
Scott.
Small and medium ballistic missiles could be the problem. They want an end to this, but the negotiators on the Iranian side are veterans of the Iranian Revolution, and they're master
I don't go as
negotiators.
often
So they're
as
trying
I
to
need to go, but I'm starting to go back instead of just watching it online. Sorry, I was trying to read the lower third.
really just kick the can down the road a little bit. And the question is, will the U.S. run out of patience?
You can sing, God?
So we're learning now that the president, just I guess during this meeting at the Board of Peace, has said that when it comes to the negotiations that are happening with Iran, that that he believes that he will know in the next 10 days, Courtney, whether or not there's a deal in place with Iran. So it almost sounds as if he's giving the Iranians a time frame by which they come to the table and acquiesce to the demands that are being made by the United States, and I believe to some extent Israel as well. What do you make of that?
I hope you're doing
well. That really comes to about the 2-week period where after the latest nuclear talks earlier this week, they decided to come up with a plan from both sides, and the Iranians are working on that, according to Iranian officials, to come back to the table after they've devised what their conditions are. So that's definitely in the time frame. The one thing to remember that people tell me all the time that I speak to is President Trump does not want war. But the other big factor here is Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And we also know from CBS exclusives that President Trump gave Prime Minister Netanyahu a green light on December 29th to go after the ballistic missiles program. So there's really, it would be very hard for them to come to agreement.
But Courtney, the one thing that I'm curious about is, okay, so this military action, potential military action, would be one in which we potentially could see the Iranians striking back. This wouldn't be a targeted. This Charlie says that this Charlie D'Agata, our Pentagon correspondent, says that this would be targeted, but at the end of the day, it would be sustained. It would go on longer than those 12 days that those strikes took place back in December. And so, if Americans are killed in this kind of military action, that would be catastrophic for this presidency.
Absolutely, but it's also
in other words, the Iranians would fight back, as I guess my point.
Right, and they did last time. What we've seen over three incidents, including the 12-day war, is what the Iranians have in their arsenal. We've also seen Israel go after their launchers. Can't get rid of the missiles, but the launchers have to come up on the ground to be launched.
Right.
And so you can hit the launchers, and then they can't launch anymore. Now, they have rebuilt some, but the U.S. is very, very aware of the casualty count. And I just want to really put into context, too, I'm talking to people in Iran, and the vast majority of Iranians are mourning protesters that were killed. It's the 40th day for a lot of these deaths this week, yesterday and the day before. And in defiance of the Iranian regime, they're celebrating, they're dancing, they're singing, they're playing music. That's all against what the Islamic regime says they can do, and it's breaking the social contract. So people tell me they're scared, but they think this might be the only option, airstrikes. This might be the only thing that can help them at this point after those massacres, which were the worst massacres since the Iranian Revolution in modern times. So we still have a real read on what's happening in Iran. People are communicating, they're able to make phone calls, but I'm captivated by these videos of people defiance, yelling, singing, crying out their loved ones' names. And they say Javid Nam, eternal name. They will not use the Arabic word shahid for martyr because they don't want anything close to an Islamic Arabic kind of word. They're complete in defiance.
And Courtney, before you go, I just want to ask you, when you zoom out, what this says about the US's role in the world and this larger geopolitical picture? I know you mentioned Israel, but what could this mean?
Well, everyone talks about what we did last time, what we did in Libya with the NATO, what we did in Iraq in 2003. Social media has changed everything. The young population has changed everything. They're a global population that wants regime change, and they're willing to see it come from Israel and the US. It's not the death to America. It's not the state, this display of regimists, it's basically death to the Ayatollah Khamenei. They're screaming it from the rooftops when the regime is also saying God is great. This hasn't cowed them. I mean, it's heartbreaking, and they're scared, but they're brave, and they're willing to keep going.
Courtney Keeley, thank you so much.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
All right. Thank you for the scripture. It's all about knowledge, and the more that we know. And I don't give you guys these videos or share these videos to cause division. I love knowledge. I love what's going on in the world. We got to pray for our country. We got to pray for our president, his safety, because people want to take him out. People say that I love Trump. I love our country and Trump, but I love our country, and I'm praying for its safety. I appreciate you guys that do communicate with me. Feel free to leave me comments under my comment section, under my community wall. I did a poll. It was interesting. I did a poll. Let me look at the results of it. My poll question, did you guys see it? It was, do you believe there are people somewhat like ourselves living on other planets? 42% of you said yes, and 37% said no, 21% said maybe. And those, well, you won't see it. Those are the poll results. So I was pretty interested in that. Damon says, I love you and your support. I love you and your support for President Trump, the greatest president of our lifetime. Yes, Damage, he is doing so much for our country. A lot of great leaders and a lot of great leaders don't get the recognition they deserve, unfortunately, until they pass away, until time has gone by, because Donald Trump is going against the grain. He is doing things that should have been done a long time ago. And if Donald Trump was a Democrat, if he was still a Democrat, he would get the support that he deserves. But he's not. He's Republican, and the things that he's doing is for America's best interest, and we all know that. We know. So I thank you for your support, and for the guys that do support, our country, and they want the best for our country. Conservatives, get out and vote in midterms. And you guys know I don't bring up race a lot. But I do think that as a person of color, it is important to speak out if you're conservative, because of the whole Republicans are racist. Republicans are trying to destroy the country. They're not trying to destroy the country. We are in a better position than we've ever been. And if you want to make it in this country, you can. No excuses. Nobody needs to give you a handout. And that's just how it is. All right. So I say these things with a lot of love. Love for my fellow people, for our country, for other Americans. I don't care if you're not American. I don't care. But if you live in this country, I do think that you have to support the country. That's why I joined the military. That's why I served. That's why I've done the things that I've done for this country, because I love it. I always have. And on that note, Doc, you can tell when I'm tired. Why did I look at your comment? I don't care. That's what it's all about. Supporting our beautiful country and the people that live in it, even the ones we have to carry through the hard times. Yes, Dad. And when I talk about, government stuff, and we all need help sometimes. All of us do. And that's what's great about this country, is we can get the help. Now, you're not supposed to stay on government assistance, okay? Unless you're disabled and you have some handicaps, I get it. But if you are working and able-bodied, get out there and work. But everybody needs help sometimes. There's no judgment. None. I doubt it more now that mainstream media is pushing the aliens now. Yes, yep. I live in California, and the things that I see here is just absolutely insane. Newsom is has destroyed California. We've got to get them out. So I'm going out to vote. I have my mail-in ballot. I need to show it to you guys. There's no way I'm mailing in my vote. I have to go down there and vote to make sure that my vote is secure. So I have to take the time to do that, and that's coming up. I will be right there at the voting booth, placing my vote. Look at Claude. 14 tribes if you count Ephraim. Oh, wait, Claude is preaching. God speaking to the unrepentant Israelites. Notice how they did say to JP. Oh, because the term. Oh, okay. Doesn't it look nutty? Did you notice how I have to show you guys this ballot? And if I was dressed appropriately, I would get up and show you guys. But listen, if you could go vote in person, go vote. You know, if you're living in California, we have a chance of having a Republican in office. I would love to see that. So Zero, you know what I'm talking about with the mail-in ballot? Like I know you're not in California, but it's like that for you guys. I'm going down there to vote. Yeah, when my kids were young, my husband went on strike when we got temporary assistance, which helped me. Yeah, and that's fine, sweet girl. Everybody needs it. I may need help someday. You know, I struggle. I struggle a lot. So I'm definitely not judging at all. I just think that there needs to be things in place, you know. So I can talk about that another day. But we all need help sometimes, and I get it. I guess I'm talking about the ones that just want to be taken care of and not do anything, never work, and they become a burden on the state that they live in. All right, you guys, anything else? So I will probably be back later today. I am working on another channel. In case something happens with this one, I'll be here with you guys as long as I can. But the news is kind of hard because a lot of people get upset at what you say, and there's really nothing I can do about that. I'm not trying to make you guys angry. I'm just sharing with you what's going on in the world. So those of you that support me as long as you can, I appreciate it. Continue to just be safe. I'm praying for you guys, and I will talk to you guys later. Look at Doc. Are you preaching too? Look at Doc. Claude, you rubbed off on Doc. Thank y'all for hanging out. Wait, what? Let's go invite me in you. I will. I will. All right, you guys. We'll talk later. I love you guys. Stay safe and enjoy your Sunday. Bye-bye. Thank you, Stewie girl. Enjoy your family. Bye, Sebastian. Wait, I'm still here. Can you guys still see me?